Now call to order the Committee of the Whole on April 15th, 2024. Time is 7 p.m. Then please call the roll.
Member Orr?
I'm here.
Member Wyrick?
Here.
Member Owens?
Here.
Member McLeister?
Here.
Member Schroyer?
Here.
Member Warren?
Here.
Member Matheny?
Here.
7 present.
We'll start off with Community and Economic Development. Ben, if you'd like to introduce 3A.
So all 3 of the items on Community and Economic Development Committee tonight are returning to us from the Planning Commission and were recommended for further consideration by the Planning Commission. All 3 will not, we're not asking council to take any action tonight. First, by local law, we're required to have a public hearing, so all 3 of these items we'll be asking you to schedule a public hearing for. So 3A, Ordinance 28-2024, is amendments to the Main Street District regulations, specifically the Main Street Center District. And the core intent of these regulations is to allow fences in that district. Currently, fences are not permitted in any form. The Planning Commission, in their review, did recommend that we strike. There's a line in the draft that talks about how tall fences could be. In particular, they were concerned about the 2 different standards for the height of the fence. That is certainly something council is welcome to consider. I would, however, recommend not striking that line entirely and maintaining some sort of maximum fence height. But I understand the concern about 2 different standards based on parcel size.
What are the 2 different sizes, do you know?
So as it's currently written, if you have an acre or more of land, you could have a fence up to 6 feet tall. And if you have less than an acre, you could have a fence up to 4 feet tall. Most of the properties in the Main Street Center that we think of as like core downtown are an acre or more. So City Hall is just over an acre. The library is just over an acre. The school is over an acre. The Hoover District, both sides are over an acre. Both churches, Zion and actually 3 churches, are all over an acre. Who would really be affected by that 1 acre standard is along East Maple. If you'll remember, last year we did an extension of the downtown zoning along East Maple, and then some of the businesses further down, it goes down to Bactel, and then Bactel starts the next zoning district. A few of the smaller businesses along South Main are less than an acre.
Okay, thank you.
Can we move these all together as one, or do we have to put it individually? Looks like we have to individually.
You can do them all as one if you want me to just explain all 3 and do one big motion for all 3.
All right, so let's do that.
Okay. 3B, Ordinance 27-2024. This is finalizing an annexation of 3 parcels that are owned by Walsh University that just came into the city late last year. They were single-family residential in Plain Township. They are currently used as single-family residential homes. We would like to rezone them as single-family residential homes. In addition, they would also be joining Ward 3. Walsh University is entirely in Ward 3. Questions on that one? Okay, and 3C, Ordinance 26-2024, is to reclassify 15 parcels on the back side of the Hoover District. They are currently primarily light industrial. It's a whole city block, and the proposal is to rezone them to Main Street Center, and that's to create a bigger buffer between industrial zoning and the R50 neighborhood that is right next to it.
Can I circle back to 3A?
Yeah.
Okay. I've had a couple residents reach out, and I know we're talking about fences, so if you would indulge me for a moment, I'm going to talk maybe more specifically about the school.
Well, that is also on the agenda tonight, if you'd like to hold on and wait till we get there. It's on the next agenda.
I know, I was going to say it here. All right.
I mean,
what is the process? Or could you share with the audience, maybe people who are watching, the process in Main Street Center for approving a site plan? How does that work?
So for generally any property in the city, regardless of its zoning district, if you're doing a large redevelopment, so disturbing more than an acre, you need to file a development plan. And you can either file that all at once as one final development plan, or if you're doing a very large development, you can do phased development plans. At the time you submit that development plan to the permits department, it is reviewed to see if you need any variances, conditional uses, other special conditions. If you need a special condition of any type, you are automatically going to the planning commission for review. If you don't need a special condition, so if you're fully compliant with the city's code as written, as enacted by you, the council, you do not need to go to planning commission. The zoning department will just ensure that you are fully compliant with all codes as written. There is a caveat in there that if there is a large development or a particularly impactful development, the director of permits can waive his right to do a purely administrative review and send you to the planning commission anyway.
I appreciate that description. I just want to say that a couple of these residents I've talked to, they just have some concerns as it pertains to the school property that we can all hold back further comment and talk to the board. Thank you for that description.
Welcome.
Any other comments, questions? So I'll make a motion to set a public hearing for ordinances 28-2024, 27-2024, and 26-2024. That would be for May 20th.
At 6:45.
6:45.
May 20th.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And I'll make a motion request from further consideration of ordinance 28-2024, 27-24, and 26-2024 until after the May 20th public hearing at 6:45.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to finance and property.
So each year, as the budget keeps progressing, we do allocate and take back certain monies that haven't been spent. So right now, we're just reallocating some monies. We had about 385,000 additional funds on a water main break, which is not something we'd love to have to spend money on, just like at your household. These are not fun expenditures, but necessary expenditures. Unfortunately, it's the third water main break in this area over the past 5.5 months, and so causing major flooding to the ground. Any other issues?
Yeah, if I can go through the list. So this
Sure.
is post failure at the inland.
I cannot hear you. I can't hear you.
So we have the list. Okay, so you have the amounts up there, but we went through the budget and these were items that were on hold until after the income tax ballot issue. So some of the things that we had originally budgeted for, we're cutting those from the budget. We will look at those as first priority for next year. But just to run down some of the list of those things, we're not going to hire 2 part-time code enforcement coordinaters. We cut 2 speed measuring devices, cut parks shade structures, the Price ball field infield upgrades, Fisher Park upgrades, Arrowhead air handlers. We cut the addition to the water treatment plant that we were going to use for supplies. We cut paving beyond what the street levy brings in, and then that is actually going to be used to match our city sheriff is making. A pickup truck, the city hall HVAC replacement, the community athletic fields. All of those things will be put on hold until next year. We added some demo funds, but half of those will be reimbursed by the Surfline Land Revitalization Fund. And then we did need to add some funds. As we said, we We needed 585,000 to address the water line that has broken 3 times now. And so the Willow Way water line was an original budgeted project, which was 200,000. So we're using that project. That project will be delayed until next year, along with the additional funds that we're asking for. It's a 1,400-foot water line on.
So if we cut about 775,000, then needed 500,000, then really,
The total cuts were 1,165,000 out of this year's budget, certain numbers. And then we did need to add some funds to correct that for the water line with one, a module to track finance, asset management for the finance department. And then our meter reading and analytics software was not added in the original budget.
Is that new water line, you had said 345,000 and you're saying 500,000?
585,000 is the quote that we have. So we're using 200,000, delaying the Willow Way water line project. We're
Okay.
using 200,000 and we're requesting to add 385.
Okay, thank you.
so Gina, so when we had the parks here at 435,000, did we have that in the budget? I guess I'm remembering that I thought we'd already taken that out. How much for the self-power, we were going to use that for the, oh, now we're cutting that. Got it, okay. Not money that's going back in, right?
Going on.
Yeah.
Revisit.
Yeah.
We'll revisit all of these next year.
That wasn't enough. No. Okay, any other questions about the first? We'll move that to the agenda. And then the second part was.
We need a motion.
Yeah, motion.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to move forward to the council agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And do you want to talk about the second one then, with the properties? The mayor.
You asking?
Who wants to do this one?
Okay. So the city currently owns what we refer to as the 1200 block of North Main Street, which is about 4 acres at the corner of Hull and North Main. This property was originally acquired to be the site of a new fire EMS and potentially police station. We have since acquired alternative property that is more centrally located in the city, and analytically on both our GIS study and the union's GIS study is a better location to put a new fire station. So we are looking to, quite frankly, get out from under the debt on this property at 1200 North Main. And so what is being asked of council tonight is to consider transferring this property to the North Canton Community Improvement Corporation so that it can be sold at private sale. So as a public entity, we have 3 options for the sale of property. Option 1 is a public auction. Option 2 is transfer it to our CIC for private sale. And option 3 is an RFQ process. We are fairly confident that if we went to public auction, we would not get the city's money back. For the RFP process, it is feasible that we could get the city's money back, but not guaranteed. With a private sale, we can, refuse to sell until we have reached a level that would make the city's money back. We do have some interested parties, we believe, that have reached out for the 2 vacant buildings. And then at present, the plan is to sell the office building as is, so with all tenants and all leases in place. No one will be evicted prior to the sale.
Can I add a note about that? Should council move forward to transferring these to the CIC, we would request the CIC on parcel 9207429, which is the office building, to assign those lease rent payments back to the city, so they continue to go to the city and we're not rewriting for a small amount.
Makes sense.
Ben, is there a thought that someone would buy all four together or not? Do we care?
There was, that I am aware of, there was one offer to buy all four, but it was several $100,000 below what we paid for all four.
All right, a motion and a second to move item 4B to the council agenda.
Is there any discussions? I mean, I think we have to do this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What did the city pay for?
City took out safety service bonds, safety service center bonds. It was just land acquisition bonds for
Oh.
2.9 million. So
Okay.
we'd like to sell the property, obviously, for 2.9 million because we owe our bondholders that.
So we're only hoping to get a wash out of it.
We hope to at least get that.
Okay.
And I think, I think we probably have to do this as well. I do have concerns because there are businesses in that building that, didn't realize that this was going to happen. And I would love if there was a way for us to help those businesses relocate if they are displaced whenever it's taken over. I know that's not our role, but I also think that those businesses some of them are just really special to this community. And I've invested here and chose to, open here. So, but I agree, we can't keep holding on to properties. We're not landlords. It's not our job.
I agree 100% with that.
Yeah.
No, I think it would be nice to find a buyer for that building to keep the tenants. But ultimately, it's going to be out of control. But that's the hope. And we can always do something as a city to help those people relocate into a proper place in the city if they're affected by it. But yeah, the hope is they're not going to be affected by that.
Are we including is the post office included in that or no?
Yes.
It is, okay.
So this would be the post office, the old CSP bank, the L-shaped office building, and then the lot that used to be Duke Gas Station and is now vacant.
Vacant. And is the plaza fully leased?
Vacant at this time. There may be one vacant.
Okay.
I also like your point, Gina, of assigning those leases back to the city.
Mhm.
Yeah,
We don't the general fund, so we're residents.
Absolutely.
yeah.
I believe all the tenants are on month-to-month basis. They all expire in October. Knowing the city was in obligation because of either the fire station at work. But they've all been notified. And, yeah.
Good.
All right, any other questions? Okay. We'll move this item 4B to the council agenda. I have a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to personnel and safety. David.
We started this discussion 2 weeks ago. Now, the personnel in the dispatch. Then we put together some additional information.
I have.
I'd like to go ahead and start.
Sure.
I think there'll be plenty of comments and afterwards.
So 2 weeks ago, we had a discussion with City Council, presented you. We had been asked to present to you what options were for dispatching. We presented you those options, and ultimately 2 weeks ago, you asked us to go back and get more information, particularly about what was called option 2 weeks ago, regionalization. So I have spent the last 2 weeks trying to gather as much information as I can. Several of you sent me questions that you wanted me to find the answers to, and I did my best to find those answers. So I will just sort of go through what I have learned for you all to consider as you think about making this choice or not. So to start, I'd like to just go over again some of the background of what we're talking about. And I'd like to say up front very clearly, because this is something we got asked during the past 2 weeks, that this is not, if regionalization happens, it is not trading dispatch for a fire department. It will not fund a fire department. The fire department will need additional funding on its own if that's happening. And that is something that we have also been working on doing research for you about, and we'll be bringing to you at a different committee of the whole meeting to talk about that project. So I just wanted to set that up front. All right, so background of regionalization, there are currently 7 dispatch centers in Stark County. Ourselves, Canton, the Central Dispatching Center, which is Nimishillen Township, CENTCOM, the Regional Dispatch Center, which was originally formed when Jackson and Massillon joined together in 1986 and has since grown into a much larger council of governments. That's called the Red Center. Stark County Sheriff, STARCOM, the City of Alliance, who also helps some surrounding small jurisdictions, and Minerva. Reports issued by consultants hired by the county over the past 2 decades have variously recommended that Stark County as a whole should consolidate its dispatching services. That is a model that Summit County just recently went to, is a highly consolidated dispatching for the entire county. In the past, the city has looked at this several times. This is at least the 4th time that I've been able to find. Most recently was in 2018, and historically the city has always chosen to retain dispatch after having these conversations. Our current dispatch center handles an average of 17,700 calls for service per year. Calls for service are all activities logged, so it could be a 911 call, could be a traffic stop, could be a house check. We currently employ 9 full-time personnel, 8 dispatchers, and 1 lead dispatcher, and then we have slots for up to 4 part-time staff. The dispatch staff also handles many different administrative tasks and duties for the police department, including records requests, paying for parking tickets, leads entries, scheduling house checks, many other things that we'll talk about this evening. For 2024, our total cost is projected to be $1.144 million. And if we break that out into the pricing model that we get regionalization quotes in, that's $50.41 a resident for police activities and $73.19 per call for fire EMS activities. Questions on the baseline before I get into the additional research?
On that second part, you said the Stark County, they want to all as the other, like Jackson or the Red District or whatever, have they had any conversation about making one giant dispatch?
It has certainly been from what I'm given to understand, it has certainly been a conversation that Stark County EMA, Emergency Management Agency, has been pushing for and flirting with for a while. Mm-hmm. But as far as I'm aware, the regionals have not agreed to consolidate into each other. If I had to guess, if that became reality, one of the existing regionals would probably grow into the centralized one for the whole county. But that's sort of outside our realm of control. Okay. So in looking through this and trying to answer all of the questions that you all sent to me, I have sort of broken it down into a number of functions and factors to consider. And so what I'd like to do is I'm going to go through each of these functions and factors and talk about how they'll work if we keep dispatch in-house and how they'll work if we join a regional center. All right, so first up is what is, in my opinion, is the most fundamental function of an emergency dispatch center, answering a 911 call. So regardless of whether we join a regional or or keep our in-house dispatching, your 911 call will promptly be received by a trained dispatcher who will dispatch emergency response units to you through computer-aided dispatching and a radio system. Now, it's important to note that right now, how we function and how the whole county functions is if you call from outside the city limits of the city of Canton, your 911 call goes to the Stark County Sheriff's first. They answer the phone and they ask you, what's your address and do you need fire, police, medical? If you are outside any of the jurisdictions directly served by the sheriff, you then get transferred to the appropriate dispatch center that serves your jurisdiction. So that is true for us right now. If we join Red Center or CENTCOM or CANCOM, that will still be true. The only regional that we could join that would cut out that transfer step is if we went directly to the Stark County Sheriff's and joined their dispatch center. From all the information I could gather, most callers will likely never know if their call had been answered by a dispatcher at a regional center or North Canton Center. And at this time, I have found no evidence to believe there would be an increase in response times from having a regional dispatcher answer your call versus a North Canton dispatcher. And we handle roughly about 4,000 911 calls a year. All right, but there will be some differences in 911 calls. So keeping our in-house center, we will maintain at least 2 dispatchers on duty. This is what we maintain right now. And that allows us to reasonably handle up to 3 calls in rapid succession. So like one right after the other. Assuming that at least one of those calls is a relatively simple, I need an ambulance. Okay, let me send you an ambulance. Then I'm done talking. Currently, and if we kept it in-house, when we request mutual aid, we get to mutual aid through a series of telephone and radio conversations to the other dispatch centers that serve our neighboring, who then talk to their agencies and then tell us whether or not those agencies are coming to help or not. Questions on that before I go to regional? All right. If we join a regional center, 3 of the 4 centers we are looking at have much higher 24/7 staffing levels than we do. Typically a minimum of 4, usually 5 or 6. So they can handle 5 or 6 calls in rapid succession before becoming overwhelmed. For mutual aid can more easily be dispatched by that regional center, provided we are requesting mutual aid from another agency in that center. So, for example, if we joined Red Center, Jackson Township is a neighboring jurisdiction that we frequently partner with for mutual aid, both us to them and them to us. Since the dispatchers are the same, if we joined Red Center, they will be able to see and know immediately before we even ask for mutual aid, is Jackson available to come help? And when we said, hi, we need mutual aid, they would just immediately send a Jackson unit, provided it's available based on their policies. However, there will still be the phone call chain if we're calling for mutual aid from a jurisdiction that is not served by our regional center. So again, if we joined Red Center, Plain Township, our other most frequent partner, is not a member of Red Center. So we would still have the phone call chain to their dispatch center, ask them if they're available. Now, the regional centers are all on the county CAD, which lets them see all active calls countywide. So the regional centers will know before even calling, should I even bother calling Plain Township right now, or is Plain Township fully occupied? They're not coming, it's not worth calling. Questions about 911 calls before I move?
You explain the county CAD to people that don't know what it is.
I have a whole nother slide on that. If you'll let me wait till I get there.
Will you share the numbers of requests that we had for mutual aid last year?
So in 2023, we had 69 requests for me. We responded and went and helped somebody else 69 times. And you challenged me because I didn't bring that sheet of paper with me. I believe we asked for help 8 times, is what I told you this afternoon when you were in my office. But I would have to confirm that 8. Okay, next category, non-emergency calls. So these are situations where you are not in immediate danger, but you do still need help from police, fire, or medical. So lockouts, welfare checks. I came home from vacation and discovered my house had been robbed. I lost my animal. I found a lost animal. There's a power line down. There's a water main break. All those sorts of activities. In all of my conversations with the regional centers, they have indicated that regardless of whether we keep it in-house or join a regional center, non-emergency calls will be answered promptly by a dispatcher and a response will be sent pursuant to our policies. So we give to a regional center, just as we give to our dispatchers right now, what our policy is on if this type of call comes in, are we sending an officer? So the example that I explicitly asked some of the centers about was, I have read a call in our call log that is, a gentleman at 3 a.m. dropped his keys in his driveway and it's dark outside and he couldn't find his keys. And we sent an officer to go help him because we weren't on any major calls at the moment. So I asked the centers, will you still take that call? And they said, if your policy is you want us to take that call and send a police officer, we will take that call and we will send a police officer, provided you are not already occupied on crimes in progress.
And then is that because we're paying for each of those calls? So they'll send as many as they want because we essentially are paying for each call that they answer like that, right?
No, we pay per call for fire and medical.
Okay.
But for police, we would pay a flat fee for the whole year, no matter how many calls come in or not. So it's not really about, they're making more money. It's just about they're honoring what our policies are. Similarly, for utility issues, we would give them all of our emergency contacts, just as we give dispatch all of our emergency contacts now. Every call. So again, it appears that most callers would not know if their call was answered by a dispatcher at a regional center or a dispatcher at a North Canton center unless they ask that question. And I have not been given any information that leads me to believe there will be an increase in response. So it will take longer for you to get help.
Are most communities' policies about the same?
No. So in talking to Red Center, Jackson Township has very similar policies to what we have now. But in talking to CENTCOM, some of the smaller police departments they service don't have those policies. They don't handle lockouts because they simply don't have the people to handle lockouts. And so that's more of the police department doesn't want to handle it, not that the dispatch won't do it.
So I'll share, this was an item I asked you a lot of very specific questions about, because I think it connects to our culture of safety, that I was concerned that that center would be like prioritizing how we would respond. So I didn't want them to.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I wanted to have the answer to the question, like, are they going to be deciding that the police do or do not respond to something, or, do we lose control over that? We do this. So I appreciate you asking those very specific questions. Because that's a big piece of what we're doing.
It is. Okay. On to the next category.
When do I get to speak on that item you just spoke about?
Not till the next meeting. Not till the next meeting, sir.
You're kidding.
The next meeting today.
The next meeting today.
I need a name.
Yeah.
You need to identify yourself, sir.
It's not right.
No, there's a
Right
meeting,
now we're in
today.
following this. It'll be in a few minutes.
You mean today?
Yeah.
Correct.
We're in a committee meeting right now, and then we'll adjourn, and then we'll do a council meeting, and then you can speak about it.
The first public speaks will with dispatch.
Can you please give your name for our court reporter? can you please give your name for our court report?
Big Gary Fogel, F-O-G-L-E.
Thanks.
So the next category is what I have chosen to term administrative services. So due to our low number of calls over the years, dispatch has absorbed several administrative functions for the police department. And there are other factors that go into this, such as the loss of an administrative assistant for the police department during post-Hoover budget cuts. So some of these duties include managing emails, filing, making copies, processing parking tickets, facilitating impound releases, scheduling house checks, and handling public records requests for the department. So right now, and if we keep dispatch in-house, these services mostly, with some caveats, are available to the public 24/7, 365 if you walk up to the dispatch window in person, or over the phone if you call the non-emergency line. On top of that, most of these public-facing services are also available online 24/7. We have internet forms to file a public records request, to request a vacation house check, to pay your parking ticket. So those would be relatively unchanged if we kept it in-house. I would say that perhaps we should expand slightly if we keep it in-house, to allow people to also get similar administrative services from the fire department 24/7, 365. Right now they only provide admin services from PD. So fire would add paying your parking ticket, or not paying, sorry, paying your burn permit, or paying your food truck registration, or signing up for a CPR class. Again, we have online forms for most of those things. If we regionalized, this will inherently look different, and this is the thing that will absolutely change the most. So if we regionalized, we would no longer have dispatch at the window 24/7. And to fulfill the duties that dispatch is currently covering, we would probably need to hire a records bureau, which is pretty standard for most police departments. And we think at the moment we'd probably need at least 2 administrative assistants to staff that. The records bureau would take over all of the administrative services we just talked about, as well as they could probably take some of the administrative tasks that we're currently asking police sergeants to do, in addition to their policing duties. However, this records bureau would probably only be active during office hours. So if you wanted to access these public services in person or on the phone, you would need to come during regular office hours. Now, those hours could be staggered. So I believe what I had proposed in the write-up I gave you all was you could have somebody start at 6 and work till, I believe it's 2, and the other person comes in at 11, so they overlap so that they can go on lunch break and somebody's still there, but the second person doesn't leave till 7 at night, so you'd have extra hours before and after, regular working hours that people could come pay parking tickets on their way to work, on their way home. That's something that would need to be figured out if we go down this path.
How many parking tickets are paid, like after 7 o'clock at night?
So I had an intern spend a wonderful day going through every call for service that we could find that would fall under this category. And that won't capture everything because they're not all logged as calls for service. But they found 171 in 2023 that were not just parking, but general admin services that occurred after hours or on weekend.
Do we track service at the window?
No, that's why I'm saying that
Okay.
the calls for service won't capture them all.
Gotcha.
It's just the best data I have.
And do we know how many, and you're saying all of this could have been done online as well?
No, you can't get your car released from impound online because you have to prove who you are. But you could pay your parking ticket online. You could file a public records request online. You could schedule a vacation house check online.
If I may, there are certain things that happen, you know, if somebody comes in and just asks for direction, it could be one of our employees reaching up to them, could be, where do I pay my utilities? That, you know, we don't track those. You go upstairs, this is where you go. It could be that they're lost again. So just, those are just two simple ones, but we don't track that stuff. It's just customer service. Thank you.
Yeah, Mayor is talking about exactly what I mean when I say that the calls for service don't capture it all. So we would, if we went down this route, we would also probably need to create a new phone tree for our non-emergency line that would sort of split people into administrative services or those non-emergency calls. So the phone tree recording would probably go something along the lines of, if this is an emergency, please hang up and call 911. If you need help, but it is not an emergency and you would like to speak to a dispatcher, press 1. If you need an administrative service, such as blah, 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 press 2. If you need an administrative service from the fire department, such as blah, 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 press 3. For all other calls, press 4. Yeah, something to that effect.
And where would the for all other calls go?
Probably upstairs to admin.
Or to these, would it go to this records bureau? Like
It
these
could.
two when they're there? Well,
Yeah, it
the
could.
same hours, yeah. Okay.
We would have to do a deeper look into what we think those all other issues are going to be, right? Because we have given them police, fire, dispatch options, so you really should be calling City Hall's main line if you have a nuisance complaint or something like that.
So right now, we have 9 full-time employees.
Correct.
So if we go to an outside, we'll need to hire at least three people to cover what you're talking about.
At least 2.
At least 2.
Mhm.
But wouldn't you would need 2 for administration and then 1 for record keeping?
It's the
You-
same thing.
Just one records bureau
Have
doing
2
all of
people,
those tasks.
Okay, thanks.
I was confused for a minute
Yeah,
too. And
to
then I figured it
figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions on that? All right. The next category is law enforcement activities. So these are ways in which our dispatchers help our police officers do their job. So the first is leads entry, which is law enforcement database entries. Regardless of whether we regionalize or keep dispatch in-house, the dispatchers will be the primary leads data entry point for our police department. The next is security cameras. So we currently have a number of security camera feeds and traffic camera feeds that are viewable live in our dispatch center. And they are what I would call passively monitored. And what that means is that it's not their primary job to watch these cameras, but should they happen to catch something on the cameras, wonderful. If we regionalized and we wanted to keep the cameras passively monitored, we could keep them up in the police department's roll call room or in the records bureau or something to that effect. If we want the cameras to be actively monitored, which means that, somebody is watching to see something go wrong all the time, we would either need to hire somebody to do that, or a much more cost-effective alternative is to employ an AI tool that has been programmed to see an anomaly and then ping somebody and tell them, hey, you need to look at this camera right now, something weird just happened. To that point, flock cameras. Flock cameras are specialized cameras that read plates and look for stolen cars or warrants or something like that. And they are already running an AI tool that when they find a plate that is flagged, it pings somebody and says, hey, you should look at this camera right now. Somebody in trouble, somebody who has a item against them just drove past. Right now, those ping to dispatch, and then I also learned today that they can ping to officers in their cruisers. We would probably need to make, if we regionalize, we would need to make sure that that pings to the sergeant on duty.
Do we have any flock cameras, or would that be something we have?
Oh, yeah, we have flock
We
cameras
have
right
flock cameras, okay, thanks.
Much, would we need additional flock?
Yeah.
Flock cameras, is that what you're, that's the same? Like, if so.
Yeah, we
how
probably
much
have
would
some.
No, I'm saying that where they route their notifications to would need to be changed. Whether or not the number of flock cameras we have now is sufficient is not something that I looked into. Questions about that? All right. Software. So there are two, really three, but I'm going to group them into two core pieces of software that need to be talked about in this conversation. Number one is computer-aided dispatching, or CAD. And this is software that is crucial for dispatchers and first responders to effectively communicate for emergency calls, to send people where they're going, to know the status of units. And CAD software is utilized both by us right now and all the regional centers. The second piece of software is records software. So for the police department, this is called records management software, RMS. And for the fire department, this is called electronic patient care record software, EPCR. Regardless of whether we keep our current dispatch or join a regional center, our police and fire departments can keep their current record softwares that they know and like to record their tickets, their patient records, their runs. The dispatch centers will not force us to change our record software. CAD, though, is a different conversation. So CAD software would be provided by the regional center we join, not by us. So therefore, it's going to inherently be a little different. So as we've been saying, let's start with in-house. So if we keep dispatch in-house, we will continue to utilize our current CAD software, Civica CMI. This operates as an on-premise software, and so we also maintain a server in the basement. It is dependent on City Hall's internet to function. So if City Hall loses internet, CAD software is down. That hasn't been a major issue so far in my time here, but it is a risk.
Isn't it a risk if it's even a regionalized?
Yes and no. So if we regionalized, all of the 4 regional centers we are looking at are on the county-wide CAD system from Tyler Technologies. This was rolled out very recently across the county. It is a cloud-based software, so we would not host it on our physical server in the basement. Yes, if City Hall loses internet, our computers at City Hall can't get there, but if we have cell service, we can still get there. If there's an internet cafe down the street, we can take a laptop and go set up at the internet cafe down the street. So there's some added redundancy there. The county-wide CAD system ties in all dispatch centers in the county. And when we toured some of the regional centers, we saw live in action, they can see all activity going on countywide. So it helps departments cooperate better with each other, talk a little more openly, lets people see more easily, can I call X department for help, or are they swamped right now? An example that was shared with us was there was a particularly bad storm that sort of rolled through the county about 1.5 years ago, and they could sort of watch on the CAD it move west across the county as further and further west jurisdictions started lighting up with calls.
This is the entire county, regardless of what center they're using?
Correct. So like they can even see the calls that have been routed to us. Now, what I've been given to understand is that because we aren't on County CAD, they can see that we've been sent a call, but they can't see what units we've assigned to it. People on the County CAD, they could see what units have been assigned to it, the time they were sent to it, how long they've been at that scene, that sort of thing.
How old is our current server?
Our current server is in its third year out of date. We had intended to let it expire because we thought we were going to join the County CAD system. And so in my capacity as IT systems manager, given that it's about $20,000 to replace, I had said, let's ride out the server until we get transferred over to the County CAD. We ultimately did not join County CAD, and so we will be replacing that server this year, along with the rest of the servers at City Hall, which are up for replacement coincidentally this year at the same time. The PD and FD servers are on a different life cycle than the City Hall servers. The City Hall servers are up for renewal this year, so we've rolled in that PD replacement with it, and that saves us a little bit of money, particularly in labor costs.
How many people are not on the county CAD system? How many jurisdictions?
To my knowledge, us and maybe Minerva. I have not yet gotten a straight answer. I did shoot an email out to them, but haven't heard back yet. I should also say I have also not 100% definitively verified that Alliance is on the County CAD, but I have not been given any reason to believe they are not.
What's your favorite internet cafe for backup?
Yeah,
But along those lines, like, have we ever looked into like a satellite connection for backup on something like that?
Not during my time here. Questions about software before I move on? All right, physical location. So currently, and if we maintained dispatch in-house, they would continue to occupy the approximately 1,200 square feet that they currently occupy in the basement of North Canton City Hall. This would not address or help solve any of the current needs of the police department, but there are other options we could work on to figure that out if we kept dispatch. If we regionalized, the 1,200 square feet approximately would be freed up, as we would not have our own dispatch center anymore. By my estimate, roughly half of that would become the new records bureau, so about 600 square feet. The remaining 600 square feet could then be dedicated to the police department's space needs. And then through our current dispatch center, there's a back door that connects to a record storage area, which is not ADA accessible, that area. We could clear that out, and that would give us roughly another 2,000 square feet. It is only really viable as active working area in its current state, unless we got rid of one of the staircases somehow, for police or fire, where we are legally allowed to mandate a set level of physical fitness for the job. So moving dispatch, we would have back in there, we would have some ADA issues we would have to solve, but I don't want to say it's impossible, but if we kept them and wanted to move them back, we would have to figure that out. Questions on physical location? Okay. All right, personnel. If we retain dispatch, the recommendation is to restructure dispatch into its own separate department. This would necessitate the creation of a new supervisor position that would probably replace the lead dispatcher position that currently exists. The current lead dispatcher would, of course, be eligible to apply for that newly created supervisor position should they so choose. If they don't wish to apply for that, they would be eligible to go back to regular dispatcher status. The dispatch supervisor would report directly to the Department of Administration, as all other department heads do. On its face, dispatch would no longer be protected by civil service. So our charter states that only full-time police and fire personnel are under civil service, are classified. Because dispatch currently works for the chief of police and has historically worked for the chief of police, that is why they are classified as civil servants and have to take tests. If dispatch is to remain classified, City Council would need to pass an ordinance to that effect, making them stay classified. It's just a side note. The difference between classified and unclassified is you have to take a test to be hired or promoted, like actual written test, and you get some additional protections against being terminated without cause, but your union protections are much stronger than civil service protections. On the note of union, the dispatch union would most likely continue to exist. I see no reason why they would vote to dissolve the union. We would likely need to increase staffing due to a mandate from House Bill 33. And this was brought to my attention in talking to some of the regional centers. So House Bill 33 is the state of Ohio's most recent biennial budget. And in addition to being just the budget, as large political organizations are wont to do, they throw a lot of other changes in with the budget. One of the changes was a number of new mandates for 911 receiving call centers. And along with the legislative changes, there was also a mandate to make updates to the 5500 portion of the Ohio Administrative Code. Pending updates to that administrative code will require 2 dispatchers in your center 24/7 no matter what. And as far as I can currently tell, that includes no exceptions for sick call-offs. My child got sick at school and I need to leave right now and go pick them up, for breaks, for eating lunch, for going to the restroom. And so unless I can find information otherwise, it really sounds more like a 3-person mandate than a 2-person mandate, because if somebody has to leave for some reason, you have to still have that too. That would increase our staffing numbers, probably by at least 4 full-time positions.
Is that number included in your financials for 24 previous slide?
Not for 24, no.
But currently we have 9. So
We'd be at roughly 12 or 13.
12 or 13 now. On our 9, how do we work it now? Do we have at least 2 people?
Yeah, right now we have at least 2 people, but we don't have that. You know, if somebody goes on a break or picks up their kid, then we're down to 1. But yes, we try our best to staff 2 people at all times.
This is a pending amendment. It's not
Yeah.
finalized.
I believe it takes effect later this year, yes.
But it's already been voted. It is happening.
Well, it's a administrative code change,
Okay.
not a legislative change, so it goes through the rulemaking process, not the state legislature.
So it is happening.
I have been given no reason to believe it will not happen.
Does anyone know an expected timeline of when that change would have to happen?
I have that information on my desk, but not in my
No,
brain.
fair enough. That's fine.
Would probably happen by the end of the year, right?
I believe so. I believe it was some date this fall.
Have we looked at the structure of other dispatches in cities that aren't regional, the structure.
You mean how many they have at a time,
Not
or?
just that, but are they part of the police department? Or are they part of, or are they separate? All the above.
It's going to depend on the city and the size. So Canton is not really a great analogy, but they're close, so I'll start with them. Their dispatch and PD are separated. So they have CanCom, which is the dispatching services, and it is its own department. And then they have the police department. I do believe CanCom is sort of under the police department, but from my understanding, it has its own budget and its own director and its own department head.
Would someone like, do you know what Uniontown is?
Uniontown uses a regional dispatching. I believe they might have, I can't remember if that was Uniontown or Greentown. One of them kept one dispatcher during the day locally, and then at night they roll over completely to the regional. But like Minerva is the other sort of lone wolf in the county, and I believe their dispatching is part of their police department because they're a member of a regional joint fire district. Okay, personnel regionalization. So as we discussed earlier, the city would need to hire at least 2 administrative assistants to staff the police department's record bureau. So we would have some new FTEs. The records bureau would assume the administrative responsibilities, not only from dispatchers, but also some from police sergeants. They would answer administrative phone calls and provide administrative services to the public. Regional centers that we have talked to, at least 3 of the 4 have expressed an interest in hiring our current dispatchers if we choose to go that route, should they want to apply. Those 3 centers, we have confirmed that they would remain in OPERS, our dispatchers, and that they would, as part of OPERS and moving, retain their vacation seniority. So they would not start back down at, say, 1 week of vacation. What would not be guaranteed in switching over is shift seniority. That would likely be up to the unions at whatever regional center we may choose to join about whether they want to let people transfer in their shift seniority or not.
Are all of the centers union we would be looking at?
At least the 3 that have said they would like to take our peak. Okay.
I mean, I think that's important. So thank you for asking those questions.
Yeah, there's that one question.
Question asked by at least 3 of you for me to find the answer to. So now the sort of thing you've all been waiting for, the financial portion of this. So there are 4 financial reasons that we might want to consider regionalization at this point in time. Number 1 is that we need to upgrade our radio consoles, and I did get a corrected number from finance for this. It's $380,000 over 5 years for that capital investment, and that would be for 3 radio consoles. Second, later this year, unrelated to whatever happens here or not, the city is transitioning phone system providers. We've had some issues with our current provider, and we found a more affordable provider who also has prior experience in municipalities and municipalities with dispatch center. That was a requirement at the time we went out to seek quotes. However, dispatch is the most intricate and costly portion of any phone system. And so that would be roughly $6,400 a year. Third, as we briefly touched on earlier, the police department, just as our fire department, has outgrown its current space needs. And there is the possibility of that if we regionalize, that might solve the police department's space needs. And number 4 are those potential legal changes to the 5500 code we talked about earlier. If the understanding that I've been given from the directors of the other centers is correct, and we do need to functionally get to a staffing of 3 at all times, that is a large personnel cost investment for the city. Next slide, please. So we have now received quotes from all 4 centers that we'd like to consider, and it does appear that regionalization would substantially reduce the city's costs for dispatching services. The current, what I'm going to refer to as standard cost quotes that we've received, are between $320,000 and $440,000 annually. Quote number 2 you'll see is closer to $700,000, but there's a footnote on there. They want to take over a lot more of our system than the other 3 do. So earlier I talked about, for the software system, we could keep our records and just join the CAD. That dispatch center wants us to join their records management system as well. So that's part of why their quote is higher.
So would that eliminate us hiring 2 records people or no?
No, that would not. That just changes what software we use
Got it.
on the back end and who pays the licensing fees and maintains the server and those sorts of things. So that is a potential savings of approximately $700,000 a year. However, once you factor in hiring people for the new records bureau, probably closer to $500,000 a year in net savings. Personnel is our primary cost driver, and at least based on historic trends, we expect that to continue to increase 3% a year into the future. And as we move to the next slide and talk about projections, I did use that 3% a year as an estimated escalator for regionalization costs as well as in-house costs.
And then you still don't have the cost in there for the bill changes and we have to have a rate per. Is that correct?
We'll touch on that on the next slide.
Can you go back to that? 1.1 million for current, does that include the $380,000 for upgrades?
That includes this year's portion of
this. So only approximately 76,000.
Yes. Gina's nodding, yes. Okay, on the next slide, we have projection charts. In the numbers used to create this chart, I did include going up to 3 people. If I had not included that, assume it drops down the point where it starts the incline after the curve up, drop that down by about 300,000, and that's your new starting point if we don't add new people. So while both do continue to increase at 3% a year, like I said, I used a 3% a year escalator for regionalization just as in-house. There is a potential immediate and long-term cost savings should the city choose to regionalize.
Then on this one, did you pick the highest cost on that one to put in there?
The cost of regionalization is calculated by averaging all 4 quotes and taking the average of those 4 quotes.
Okay. So knowing that the 684 was probably the highest, it would actually, if we chose a different one.
Correct. But I was trying not to favorite any one bidding agency at this time.
Yes.
Okay. I was also asked to identify if there were any other sort of emergency response services that we currently participate in regionalization for, and there are a few. So the city of North Canton does not have its own SWAT or special response team. We participate in county regional. We do not have our own hazmat team. We participate in regional hazmat. We don't have our own narcotics or OVI units. We participate in regional drug enforcement units. We do not have a crime lab on premises. If we need crime analysis, we are sending it out to a regional. And then we also don't have any underwater dive team, ice rescue, sort of your specialized rescue units. We would be calling for help for any of those. And we do, on almost all of these, we do have members of our departments who participate on those regional teams. So as a sort of last note, I want to briefly touch on what are the 4 regional centers that we are considering. And I want to note that I have listed them in alphabetical order and not bidder order or price order or who admin at this time feels is lowest and best. So first would be CanCom. That's the city of Canton. They are their own dispatch center, but they are big enough that they can take on other sub-agencies. They currently dispatch for municipalities around us, such as Louisville. Second is CENTCOM. This is Nimishillen Township. They dispatch for a fair number of mostly smaller fire agencies on the eastern side of Stark County. The RED Center, which is the Regional Emergency Dispatch Center. As we touched on earlier, it was formed as a joint venture by Jackson and Maslin and has since grown to have 14 agencies participating. And then STARCOM, the Stark County Sheriff's Office. Again, they are their own dispatch, but they are large enough that they can take on dispatching for other agencies. They just took on Perry Township, which is a very comparable demand size to us. CanCom, CENTCOM, and STARCOM, for all 3 of those, we would be a paying client. So we do not have a voice in the administrative decisions of those agencies. Red Center is a little different. Red Center is a council of governments model, which means that every agency that joins gets a seat on the board and gets a vote in administrative decisions. So if we joined Red Center, we actually count as 2 agencies, North Canton Fire and North Canton Police. And so each chief would get a seat on the board.
Does that seem like that's an important aspect to, if you're talking to fire and police here? Would they like that role?
Without trying to get too much into a debate of if we go this route, which one would we choose? I think that would be a important factor to consider, yes.
Is there any possibility, thinking of the future, could we become our own dispatch center and pick up other communities to join us?
So as we talked about 2 weeks ago, we could try.
Mhm.
There are risks associated with that.
Mhm.
So first of all, at least to start, we're not going to have competitive pricing. So to go back to our, we are currently paying, $50.41 per population for police.
Mhm.
Let's say we brought on Perry, that would roughly double our population. That if we split the costs evenly, that brings us both down to about $25 a person. That's still almost $10 more than the 3 other quotes here.
But what happens if we bring on smaller communities like maybe a Greentown or a Uniontown?
Well, that's what I'm getting at, is that you'd have to build up to critical mass to make it cost effective. Now, Louisville tried that route, and they did get up to 4 or 5 agencies that had joined them. But this is where the second risk comes in, which is then one of those 4 agencies they had gotten to join them left. And suddenly they couldn't afford to have a dispatch center anymore because they had reallocated the money elsewhere because they were getting revenue from this customer. So it is theoretically possible. It would take work and effort. I think also long term, once you got enough people to join, you're gonna end up with a regional center again. It just happens to be that that regional center is in your backyard instead of in Jackson Township or in Plain Township or in Nimishillen Township. And I was asked by one of you about that possibility of, well, aren't the jobs an economic driver if we had a regional center and had all these extra dispatchers? Not if they're city employees, because city employees inherently take more out of the general fund than they pay into the general fund in income tax. So that's my answer to that one.
Well, in any of them, there's risk be taken
Yeah.
for anything that we do. But yeah, I was just thinking. Okay, thanks.
We would probably want to join the county CAD if we're gonna go that route.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, thanks. A lot of work.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Information to digest here.
Yep.
There are on that. I think we have more information. I guess at this point, make a motion.
Well, let's,
You don't, well,
I'd like to. I struggle with this. I look at the budget. I see that we're in need of eliminating some expenses. This is a big one. Again, we tried to plead with the community for an increase in taxes here a month ago. Did not go as planned. You're looking on a purely budgetary, numbers only, makes sense. I can tell you that 2 weeks ago, if I wrote down my date correctly, the 5th, I spent 2 hours in dispatch, and I want to thank the individuals that I worked with because it really changed my eyes, or changed my opinion, I should say. I was in favor of this before I sat down in that chair. I'm not in favor of it now. Were we inundated with an overabundance of 911 calls? I think there were 2 or 3 911 calls. I did learn that they sound differently than as 911 as opposed to non-emergency. I think it was 2 or 3 911 calls. We got a number of non-emergency calls, and I lost track of the number of people that came up to the window. I think that this is going to fundamentally change the way that our police department serves the community, and the way that the officers are served. Aside from just phone calls, I watched a suspect being brought in handcuffs. Before that, they were in communication with dispatch, getting information about that person. I saw faxes come in for upcoming cases that were prepared and scanned in for that individual, or excuse me, for that case in preparation for that officer to go down to court. And I saw other administrative tasks as far as filing warrants and things like that. We're going to be losing an awful lot if we go down this path. And the thing that scares me the most is, we say tonight, this makes sense, let's do it. And then we realize whether it's a month, 6 months, or a year down the road that we've made a bad decision. I fear that the bell has already been rung, and you're never going to get it back. So I'm not in favor of this. I thought that I had, maybe we looked into some sort of a I know Matt and I have talked individually at different times, why don't we have a fire levy? Why don't we have a police levy? Why don't we have a dispatch levy? Maybe we consider doing something on that level, whether it's a fire or dispatch, whatever you want to call it. I love the idea of option 3. I see the vision of becoming a regional center, but obviously down the road. But maybe we try some sort of levy. And then go down this path with that. But I just fear that the other thing, I mean, back to cameras. I heard a story about one of our officers that was in a scuffle and they happened to see it on camera. No, they're not actively watching, but the cameras are there. And that officer was not able to respond in and call for help. It was because one of the dispatchers that saw it. They were able to get people there to help. I just, I'm rambling at this point. I just fear that this is more than a line.
Well, there's still a lot of questions to be answered. All right. And I don't think we need to make cuts, but I wouldn't make this cut right now. I sort of agree with you on that. I'd rather, keep it as is, and we could find other places to make cuts and stuff of that nature. So I agree with
The problem
you.
right now is we need, so we don't have the luxury of either being half in or half.
Right.
And so,
Can we still get by with the equipment that we have? No?
no.
Chief Jim. With the equipment question that you have, Scaly Technology supports our equipment. We're not planning on doing anything else at the moment. They said they will keep our radio system up and running at this time for us. Wherever it needs to be, they can maintain it. Catch that we do have, the reason we went after the 5-year purchase plan for the new equipment was because they no longer make boards to support our system. Staley's is refurbishing those boards, going out and finding parts to support. So that is maybe it's not an end all be all answer to that, but it might allow you a little bit more time to thoroughly look into this.
That's good. Thank you.
Okay. I mean, so I would like to set a time to sit with dispatch. And the same, I think, how can you possibly oppose this without looking at the regional centers? What is our comparison? We need to look at both. And the fact of the matter is, the public very clearly spoke that we need to make cuts. There's no way around that. This was the glaring,
Right.
eye-opening number that sticks out. So we have to look at this. To me, putting this forward, it's exploring options. We have 3 readings after this to look at. And I challenge all of us to look at everything, to look at our own in-house and the regional centers. I think that's very important. This is not a difficult decision. We love our dispatch. We love our police. We love everything. It's not easy to cut, but we very clearly have to cut something. So this is going to be a very difficult challenge for everybody, and I really would like everybody to participate and sit in with our dispatch and looking at it.
And I think, can we just reiterate, you just said it, but so right now we're in committee, right? So for anyone who doesn't understand how this works, we're in our committee. So we're going to move this to the actual council meeting agenda. This is the plan right now. And then we vote on that 3 times, and it has to pass all 3 times. So we're very much still in the information gathering area here. A yes vote today does not mean dispatch goes away. It means we're looking, we're exploring, we're learning.
And people are visiting the Red Center, they're visiting the other areas to gain more information. But I think, go ahead. That's all. I think I have been to the Red Center. I have been to Canton. I've been to the others. And we did that through Leadership Star County because there has been such an emphasis for collaboration because smaller governments like ours, they weren't able to keep up with funding new locations. I don't know how many people get the repository anymore, but it certainly is not on the front page of the paper that calls are not being answered. I mean, if you watch any TV show, everything is regionalized. So I love the fact, I guess, that we could be on a county system, that they would be able to see what we're doing, and we're able to see what they're doing. And if Ben had said, hey, the calls, we're not going to get the cat in the tree anymore, or we're not going to get the person that dropped their keys, I wouldn't be in favor, but nothing is supposedly changing, except that it's not housed in an older building that at this point we don't have room for. So when you talk about regionalization, you're talking about duplicative services where nobody has said anything is wrong. And we live in a region where we have to stop doing that. Nonprofits are not getting funded. Governments are not getting funded if they are not working collaboratively. And so we have been told 3 times now on the ballot, no, no, no. If you look at letters to the editor, if you look at calls online, and I understand that a lot of people don't understand all the information, but they say we have to make cuts. You saw 12 to 15 line items, $450,000 in parks. So are you willing to say that? Because if you start doing the math at his high expense of taking 4 different numbers at a higher cost average, at a minimum, you're at 2.5 million in 5 years, minimum. And I guess the other nice thing was that we would be able to hire two of our employees, and the other agency said that they would be able to take on the employment of the others. I think that's huge. I mean, we've tried this 3 different times, and we never have gotten this far. So thank you, Ben, for getting us the real numbers, the actual data, and not having this made-up information. Otherwise, we're winning.
I am
Not easy.
here to help council find answers.
Along those lines, I think what we need to do is narrow this down. Have administration recommend who they think we should be looking at. So we're going to spend time visiting a center, what their actions and what they do. Spend time with our dispatch to see what they're doing. Have a direct comparison. I would like to see administration give us that recommendation and why.
Or maybe even 2.
Well, yeah, 1, 2, yeah.
Well, we, like any competitive procurement process, we would rank them as.
Because it's not always the lowest, it's the best for
Us.
comparison. So if you're looking at just strictly numbers and you go by the lowest, you may be persuaded, but it's not actually the best. So we need to compare what we have with the best alternate solution. So
I also do, I am concerned about it's House Bill 33. So, if we're having to add 3 to 4 more full-time employees, it almost forces our hand to look to expand, which is even further costly for equipment, for replacement. So that is a concern out there. So I would like to read up a little bit more on that. I wasn't aware of that before tonight.
I am
Bills coming.
doing my best to verify,
Right.
but state administrative codes are not
They're
clearly
right.
written.
Well, they're written by attorneys, so no offense.
Okay.
before we move this to a council agenda, I would like to make a motion that administration recommend to city council best the ranked options for discussion at our next meeting.
Second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
Does that delay us? in moving
You're
forward?
delaying us.
No, just, I don't believe that's for the next.
Oh, wait.
So
So we have all the data, all your.
we're going to redo this vote after I explain this, for clarity's sake. The motion that Member Matheny has just made is not for a specific piece of legislation. So there will be nothing to pull forward to a council agenda. What we would bring back to you for the next committee, which would be May 6th, I believe, would be another information brief answering as many more questions as you all send me, but also ranking the 4 centers with what we feel is not just lowest, but also best quality. And that if we then moved forward, we would move forward with some sort of legislation authorizing entering into a contract with that regional center.
Were you wanting to move it to the next committee or the next?
Why can't we still move it to the agenda? Why can't we still move it forward? Who's bringing back new information? So we're just getting it on the agenda and moving it. Do that. We're still gonna have all.
Well, yeah, but we go into,
At this point, I don't have legislation for you to be on an agenda.
Right now.
Yeah. We would have to pick an agency first that we're going with.
Okay.
We need to have another committee that will only discuss this.
Okay.
So between now and then, we can also visit
the
the Thus, the motion is the administration recommend.
Oh, I see.
So for discussion, I mean, there is no urgent timeline on this. I mean,
That's
is there
what I
a
know
deadline
of.
for the equipment to be replaced that would affect
Current order is on hold until
June 15th? Okay. So
And
we have
Chief
time
said
to
that we're good.
yeah, Chief says we're good for right now.
Technology has said able to person combined, so we can communicate on personnel.
Okay.
I didn't, so what'd you say?
Health technology, so they would want to.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
May I ask a question? So, does this give committee members here, or council members, time to either visit dispatch or communication center and these others? Does it give you a window to, you're asking administration to give you a recommendation? But how do we understand where you feel after you visited these
Well,
other areas of communication? I'm just trying to make sure that you're asking a lot from the administration to make a recommendation. But I think it would be safe that for us to understand too, how you feel, what your experience are in visiting other dispatching centers. Is that fair enough?
I agree with that.
Does
so
that
there's,
give you enough window, or does that make sense to you?
I mean, but why not take 2 more weeks? This is pretty important decision.
yeah,
I mean, so if
Well, I think
we,
that's what he's saying. He doesn't have legislation anyway.
so why don't we postpone this to the next committee?
oh,
I mean, that's,
We're not moving this legislation to the council.
Right.
We're asking administration to give us their ranking.
their ranking.
We do our visits, then we can put our 2 cents on it as to what we feel is important.
I'm good
So
with
we
that.
get administration's ranking, and then we can come back with our own. opinion
Yeah.
on what we've seen. That's the motion on moving.
I'll second that motion.
Do we want to revote on this then?
Yeah,
you should revote for clarity, yeah.
Do you know what the motion is? Are you clear?
yeah, I'm clear now.
Okay. Is Ben clear?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. All right.
Want me to repeat them?
So we have a motion and a
Yeah,
second.
so repeat the motion to direct administration to recommend the city council ranking the lowest and best that they feel on regionalized dispatch services.
Story seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
Motion passes 6-1. Moving on to street and alley.
I think technically.
Oh, this should be utilities, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Your cheat sheet's wrong.
Read anything that's on?
So this was what we discussed as being a possibility of having a flat fee for our storm sewers, the storm sewer funds, as opposed to having the levies. So this would establish a $5 fee, basically for every water customer.
Residential.
Space.
Residential.
and commercial.
and commercial.
Oh, I
So,
thought
yeah.
commercials were based
Well,
on.
and I was just gonna say,
Oh, okay.
as properties get larger,
Larger,
there,
okay.
there is an escalating scale. That's the basic gist of it. Ben, do you have any other, points to add?
So how we got to the $5 was we calculated backwards from how much we currently raise. As a nice coincidence, if you all were to alternatively authorize a replacement levy of 1 mil for the current 1 mil levy, that would also work out mathematically to about $5 for your average house. So to be clear, how we got to the $5 was to raise the same amount of revenue, not to match a hypothetical levy.
And just for the point of clarity, this is something that a lot of communities are moving towards doing. Okay, perfect. Okay, I just want people to hear that because I know that there have been some comments that this is a way of removing the voice of the voters, but this is the direction that a lot of us, our cities are going. So. Any?
And not just started to, it's a
It's
long
been-
history of
yes.
doing it. Most of them have never been on.
Right.
26 cents.
Any questions or comments for the rubbish committee? So, all right, seeing no others, so I would make a motion that we move item 6A to the council agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Take a 2-minute break and then.
Better make it 5.
Final call to sign up to speak at the next meeting.
Right. It's always been here.
Does that mean nobody can speak tonight?
Yeah. We'll go into a council meeting and you can speak then. This was a committee of the whole meeting. So we're talking things out.
We're good.
Now call to order the city council meeting of March. What the heck is that? March 25th? Again.
April 15th.
April 15th.
I was busy with the dispatch stuff.
Time is 8:46.
It's March 25th, we have a couple days until tax day.
Seriously. But I thought that would be, opening prayer. Jamie.
All right, let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of this great community. Thank you. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Hey, Bernie, would you please call the roll?
Member Matheny? Member Warren?
Here.
Member Stroya?
Here.
Member McLeister?
Here.
Member Owens?
Here.
Member Wyrick?
Here.
Member Orr?
Here.
7 present.
Motion and a second to approve as presented minutes from March 25th, the 2020 public hearing, minutes from March 25th, the 2024 city council meeting, and the first quarter 2024 financial.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, so for recognition of the public tonight, we will include dispatch into the first area. So everybody that signed up in the second, I'll read it in order. Larry, you'll be first since you signed up for the first one. And then I'll read in order everybody else. If everybody else wants to talk about dispatch, they're welcome to. Ben, would you read the preamble?
At this time, members of the public who have signed up to address City Council will be called to do so. Each speaker will be given 5 minutes. Speakers shall be called in the order they signed up. During this section, comments shall be limited to legislative items appearing on this meeting's agenda and dispatch from the previous meeting's agenda. The rules for speaking and the speaker's time will appear on the screens. After you have finished speaking, please remain at the podium to answer any questions from officials seated at the dais. This will serve as final warning for all speakers. Any violation of the rules will result in ejection from the premises.
First up, Larry Tripp.
Larry Tripp, 1127 East Maple Street, North Canton, Ohio. Tonight, my remarks center around new business on the agenda. However, first, let me ask everyone a question. What do you consider some important and fine quality about living in North Canton? We know excellent schools would probably be number one, so let's consider those under local level government control. First, I would suggest nice, friendly citizens living as neighbors. So much that my 3-hour lawn work turns into 4 or 5 hours for the many breaks taken to express pleasantries with the many passerbys on East Maple Street. Citizens who have always supported the needs of the city when the needs are presented to them with the right set of circumstances. Under the right set of circumstances means knowing what is the problem, why is the problem, and what is the solution to the problem. We haven't gotten that from this government. So tonight, I anticipate more to come about the future of the North Canton Dispatch Center. On April 1st, council and citizens were presented a presentation with slides, opinions, question and answers, basically leaving one important question unanswered. Why try and fix something that isn't broken? We have heard the dispatch center is now an integral part of the city's police department, offering administrative help to them and being a professional component to the citizens of North Canton. I used the EMS in September of last year, talked to a dispatcher to come and pick me up, had the EMS, had the best service ever. Couldn't have had a better service from anybody.
until I got to the hospital that I also received. But anyway, presently, we probably have 10 or 11 city employees whose future as being employed by the city lies in limbo for perhaps no reason. Here is an opportunity for city personnel to back up their statement of having young people just starting their transition to adulthood make North Canton their home city and destination. Why? Why create havoc with 10 or 11, 12 people? Remember, if the dispatch center is dismantled, it probably, as Mr. Blaster said, won't be coming back. It creates an uncertainty among other city employees. And I'm of the opinion there are many other ways to implement savings. We have tremendous high salaries to directors, deputy directors. Why does everybody need a deputy director? Who's going to help me if I need help? Police, EMS, and fire. Who am I going to talk to first? A well-trained city dispatcher. So please, folks, consider tabling this. I don't understand saying this. It's like Mr. Stroya, you're putting the blame on the citizens for voting the tax increase down. How? You're putting the blame. Yes. So how did we come to this, Mr. Mayor? This land banking has cost the city tremendous amounts of money. And now we're asking to lay off people to compensate misgivings by our local government. Thank you.
Questions for Larry Tripp, because I certainly have one. What did I say to say what you said about putting the blame on somewhere else? I'd love to hear that one.
Oh, yeah, wait till the minutes come out.
Oh, I'm asking you
No,
right now.
wait, I can't talk, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm at my seat.
You're not following the rules of council.
Oh, 2 weeks ago, I returned to my seat and wanted to ask a question, or 3 weeks ago, and you said, no, you've returned to your seat, you can't speak.
So let the record reflect that Mr. Tripp refuses to follow council rules and refuses to answer any questions. Thank you. Not surprised. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Tripp? Okay, moving on. Gary, you're next. Okay. Last morning. Do you understand?
Do I?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Gary Vogel is on first.
Yeah. My name's Gary Fogel, live 1023 Worcester Northwest. I retired from North Canton Police Department about 30 years ago as a lieutenant. I have real interest in this subject. We fought this back at that time, and I'd say half the city showed up standing room only because they were so worried about losing their own dispatch. They don't, all the people I talk to don't even know about it now. I got a feeling people have to answer to. First of all, I'm really appreciative of everything, all you do, and I'm sure your fault, working at trying to figure out what's best for the city. Doing away for dispatch, not best for the city in every way, shape, and form. I've worked in another city when I started Hartville. The Stark County Sheriff was the principal dispatch for us, and a couple other little towns and us on that. I almost got killed one night because I stopped a car full of suspicious people. I got their ID, etc. It was on Stark County radio. They knew I stopped. While I'm questioning the driver, the riders all got out, spread out across the road. I jumped out of the car quick and persuaded them to get back in their car. So fortunately, I did get their information, ended up catching them. But they had just beat an old lady half to death with their guns. They all had guns. Coming to it. I'm secondary on their list. They're worried about their own people on a nice, busy Friday night. The county car can find up and know where they're at, and I tell them, just come loose, they didn't have anything. That's when they informed me what happened. I had other instances like that too. We cannot go and someone else dispatching county. We don't know these people. We don't know who dispatchers are. I appreciate all you've done, looking into that. But I don't think anyone here except people who live with it. I can't believe any police officer in a smaller town that's eaten up by of these other dispatchers will talk favorably about us. There's nothing to talk favorably about. Our people in North Canton are kind of spoiled. They're used to real good response time. You can't have that. They call some other department who calls another department. Some lady or some wife or some person beat half to death. You got minutes to get there. You don't have time for this call to make that call. You don't. You don't have time to be putting on the back burner if they have to be busy. Twice when I needed a cruiser when I lived in Canton, in Greentown over here, one night took 2 hours, the other night's 3 hours. And I just worked an afternoon shift here, had to double back into a day shift in the morning. By three in the morning, and then on the other cruiser come to my house, oh, we're kind of busy. I had to call back in the morning. We're gonna bump into stuff like that. People here don't deserve it. I talked like 4 families into moving to North Canton because of our police and fire and EMS response time. I got my daughter moving into town, hopefully this spring and this summer. It's for this reason, no other reason. I think in every other way we're a city. This is special. If it's so hard to finance it, I have no idea why we can't. I think you might mention, go to the news media, go to the paper, publicize the extra expense, ask for a little help doing it. And if at least if all the citizens had their chance to vote on that, I'm hoping that they would okay it and fund this thing rather than you people have no idea what nightmare this is going to be. I mean, it looked real good on paper talking to these people. I appreciate your effort of doing this thing. It's just wrong. I mean, I've lived it. I know what it's like. And I don't know anyone happy in a situation like this. Our people deserve more. I dedicate my life protecting my people when I work. I still feel that way. I'm retired, but I still live here. I think we've got to have a big hot headache about it. I appreciate everything all you're doing, but please look at this factor, try to figure some way to do this, some way to cut, some way to raise the money. This is too important to just peel away. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Phil?
Thanks for your service.
Norma. Myrna, sorry.
I agree with everything Gary said. I need a name.
Yeah.
Myrna Strawson.
Thank you. Melanie Wool.
Mine is on something different, so I'll wait till the end.
Okay. Yeah.
Judy Mitchell.
Really don't have a lot to say. I just really.
Yeah.
Can you start with your name and address? Okay, Judy Fishel, 225 Fifth Street, Northwest, North Canton. I just wanted to say that I do appreciate all the information that was provided. I am a firm believer that we should keep the dispatch. I've used it myself several times, and they are so prompt and efficient, especially EMS. I've been in an accident where they were there before I even had a chance to think about anything. And I don't know if that's from the cameras, it might have been, I'm not sure. I just really feel that the dispatch needs to stay. I think we need to make cutbacks in some other places. I know there's a lot of money has been spent on acquiring land, and I know they need land because they need to place places. But I think there should be some other places we could look at. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments for Rich? David?
Oh, he had to leave. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay, all right, thanks. Ron?
Ron Meisner, 604 Hillcrest Avenue, Northwest. I was raised in the city of North Canton and have been a citizen of the city all my life. I started my career when as a dispatcher in the North Canton Police Department, currently a sergeant. I'm aware the city is looking into expanding the communications center. Obviously, communication is a vital part of the success of any organization, especially when lives are. I don't think the count, well, strike that. I think the impact is going to have. Beginning, I wasn't so sure, but it had a strong impact on the city service. I would hope that the council members will have each fully investigated this issue before casting it. You should consult with our citizens, along with other people in government and employees that have been impacted by going to an outsourced dispatch center. The decision to fund the communications center may have an initial positive impact on the city's budget, but it will have a drastic effect on the operation of police, fire, EMS, and other city departments. The dispatch center has been the nerve center of the city for around 70 years. Our dispatchers do more than just dispatch. They provide many other services that people don't realize. Here are just some of the services. We'd be here all night. It's amazing. They continually update officers on up-to-date important dangerous situations. They assist citizens at the walkway window 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I can attest to this. Overnight, you don't even understand this. Some of these interactions are routine in nature. Some of these encounters are with people in distress and in need of immediate emergency assistance. They monitor current weather conditions and sound the disaster sirens when needed. They monitor the surveillance cameras located throughout the city hall. Female dispatchers help with dealing with female prisoners while processing them at the police department. While outsourced dispatch centers might claim to be able to provide many of these same services, I can just about guarantee you that their level of service will not match the level of service of current dispatchers. It might be cheaper initially to outsource dispatch services. Remember that the contract renewals don't come with a guarantee. By outsourcing the communications center, city administration and council will also lose control over how the new center operates. Service levels will actually be determined by the management of the new center. Disciplinary action on employees will also be at the discretion of the new entity. The city will really have no recourse other than to try to find another service. This is evidenced by the fact that many other police agencies have reached out to our department to provide dispatch service for them. They are obviously dissatisfied with their current situation. I have not heard any positive feedback from officers working for an agency that has outsourced their dispatch services. In closing, I want to reaffirm the importance of our communications center to the everyday operations of our city. Remember, previous councils and administrations have considered getting rid of our dispatch center, but they ultimately decided against it. I strongly suggest that each of you research the overall impact, not just the fiscal impact, that disbanding the communications center will have on the city of North. I believe that future city councils and administrations will look back unfavorably on this council should we vote to forfeit control of our dispatching service. We actually have somebody, we should talk to people who actually have had to deal with doing this. I mean, the boots on the ground. We actually have somebody here today that's dealing with it now, April Perry Township. And I'm sure they'd be willing to talk to you if you'd be able to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Questions, comments for them? Matt, Buster.
Thank you.
Thank you for friending.
What's that?
Thank you for friending and stuff.
Matt Matthew Buzzard, 952 East Maple Street. Sorry, I had to bring my computer. I was trying to get everything done. My kids kept bothering me with things, so I was typing a little bit while we talked. I want to agree with Gary. We appreciate it from you guys. We know you're in a tough spot, and you've got to balance a budget, and you got to find money. We get that. We understand that. But as you can tell by the room tonight, there's a lot of strong feelings with this. So I have never actually felt compelled to speak publicly on matters involving the city, but I owe it to the citizens and to a handful of special people here tonight to get up and say something. So when you're running a city, as you guys do, I would think the first things or the few things you would look at would be clean streets, clean water, great schools, quality safety services. North Canton has hung its hat on those qualities for over a century. And a centrally located communication center has been part of that group for nearly 70 years. When essential functions such as dispatch are outsourced to distant locations, there is a loss of control and oversight, leading to potential communication barriers, misunderstandings, and a lack of accountability. This can ultimately result in compromised quality, reduced customer service, and even threats to public safety and security. In an interconnected world where trust and reliability are paramount, outsourcing undermines the very foundation of service excellence and integrity. When it comes to safety services, the city has always prioritized the well-being of their employees and the community members over short-term financial gain. The issue of outsourcing dispatch has come up several times in the past, as we've discussed. Each time, members of the council listen to the community and pursue a different path. I urge you to do the same again. You can look at all the fancy statistics and graphs you want. Then you do good graphs. But I promise you, safety services are not best operated on a spreadsheet. As a matter of fact, they are called public service for a reason. They are rarely showing that positive on a spreadsheet. The real value is hidden underneath all those numbers. Businesses prefer to set up shop in a safe town. Local colleges like Walsh University, who our dispatches for, helps. They thrive when the parents of their students feel their most precious assets are living in a safe community. And young families want to buy a home and raise a family, where the vital link between them and safety services is not only a phone call, but just around the corner if needed. It is for these reasons that I ask that this matter be given more consideration. And I appreciate those that have came in and observed and are willing to extend that time to us. The entire process just seems to be moving a little rapidly, and I'm unclear on the need for such a quick decision, which we already discussed a little bit earlier. Take some time to really study the issue. Come sit in dispatch and speak with them. Speak with the community and safety service members from other jurisdictions with regional office. We got a senior member of dispatch here who can answer any question. I can be able to answer the House bill. Come in, take time. Police, we appreciate you coming in. Speak with these folks. They can provide you answers, whatever questions you possibly have. Much better than I could probably stand in here in 5 minutes. To finish up, North Canton has always compared itself to cities like Hudson, Bath, Quincy, highly sought after communities with high property value and excellent schools. Not surprisingly, all those communities still have their own communication centers because they recognize the importance of controlling the controllables. Unlike all the items on our finance director's list that are highlighted as being cut and reevaluated next year, dispatch doesn't have that luxury. When it's gone, it's gone. There's no going back. So, as indicated, a favorable contract in years 1 through 3 at a regional center might become unfavorable in the years down the road when they know you have nowhere to go. The wall is right up against you. In the end, I believe in a community-based operation, service over scrimping and people over scripts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions for Larry?
Paula?
I'm also, if potentially something else, not.
Okay.
Save any cost.
Do you want to speak on open topic?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And do you want to speak on open topic? Okay. Thank you all for speaking about dispatch.
President?
Yeah.
I think one of them had mentioned that you have share some of their experiences.
Sure, yeah, if you'd like to approach the podium and name give your name and address, please.
Danielle Patrick, 9137 Highland Creek. I apologize, I was not aware I was speaking, I would never come in front of you guys. I work under trustees, like never in my life, I do public speaks a lot and this is a nightmare. So I apologize. Everything they said, your officers and your public that have actual boots on the ground is correct. It's hard for you to speak on this, Mr. Young, because you've never been in safety services to actually experience it. Never had your life put on the line or in the hands of somebody else in that communication line. Unfortunately for us, I don't know how much everybody knows about Perry. Our chief was terminated. And ultimately, a part of that was a decision to get rid of our in-house dispatch. I was fortunate enough, I started my career at Marple Township. So we had CENTCOM, but we were also answering the phones ourselves at point and dispatching ourselves. This was 10 years ago. Then I went on to the Stark County Sheriff's Office, where we did have STARCOM. So speaking to deputies or people who STARCOM, they're going to tell you, the best dispatch in the world, but that's also in-house for them. They've never experienced anything else. And I agree, they do have good dispatchers. But you are losing that control that you would have maybe from the end that you would have. We essentially went with the Red Center. Made sense for us, we're on the west side. So the theory behind that is all your agencies are sitting like you guys are with the screens in front of them, able to turn around and say, Jackson, you're on Perry's line, they got this coming through, dispatch it, okay. Was there still hiccups in it? Absolutely. And that was our first touch of basically seeing numbers on paper looking good and saying, we're gonna do this for the community with a field levy in the background. Understandable, you have to have funds. There was a lot of things, they've never had the same directors. If you would probably want to gather statistics on when the directors of all these agencies, all these red centers, like your big centers, that's going to be short spans and different directors going to different places. Because that's been a really hardship for them. And that's hard for us to not have that actual person to be able to go to. I know that we've had issues, our supervisors have had issues, and we've had issues at the Red Center. It caused us to have to leave. At that point, what do you do? We don't have the Red Center anymore. County couldn't take us on at the time. Didn't have enough employees, and we were too big. So we ended up at CENTCOM. This is not a police dispatching agency. They are mainly fire. There's a big difference between us. So they're not prioritizing police, which they are telling us. They're prioritizing the fire, which understandably, it's all emergency services. But, we're having the same type of calls come in. I've had experiences where I had a missing juvenile I was actively looking for, and they were just, the number that was coming up on the dispatch phone was the mom. So they were assuming it was the mom calling in, but she was actually calling to be like, it's me, I need help. And they were forwarding it to supervisors' voicemails until I caught it. So I was very unhappy that day, just to put it out there for an example. I could have prepared more for you of what we've experienced and how if I would have had time, and I can also do that. And I would invite all of you, if you want to come talk to our dispatchers. We do have records clerks, our main one. She's about ready to retire 30 years in, but she was our main dispatcher for years and has a lot of insight she can provide. You're welcome to sit in with me and listen to my radio. We have CENTCOM. Numerous other agencies have Red Center on the west side. I'm sure they'd be willing to allow you guys to come. I really encourage you to come take the time, feel it out, see what goes on. I want to say don't go with warning, because like anything, it's like if the health department calls you and says we're coming, everybody's on their best behavior, like lickety split, you know? And you don't want that. You want to see it real time, what's going on. So I thank you for hearing me, and if you have any questions, I'm always open for that. Any type of discussion, anything I can help you with. Like I said, I've worked at every agency and had almost every dispatch service except for Canton. Just like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're a dispatcher? No, I'm a detective. Okay, you're a detective. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, moving on to old business. Ben, would you please read the title of ordinance 12-2020?
An ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of North Canton to reclassify 10 parcels in the city of North Canton in accordance with the amendment procedure set forth in Chapter 1182 of the Planning and Zoning Code from their existing classifications to Maid Street Center.
Okay, we did discuss this in the previous meeting.
I'm gonna confuse myself, yeah?
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So, 'cause-
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you.
Okay, so you did discuss this in the previous meeting. There's nothing new on this. Any comments or questions? Anything further?
I believe it might be beneficial to go over in more detail what this is.
Right.
So the school district and the public library, not library, have purchased properties on the north side of Portage Street Northwest. And right now those properties are zoned primarily residential, which means that schools and libraries are not permitted by right use. They came to us and requested a zoning amendment to change to Main Street Center, which is a zoning district in which schools and libraries are both permitted uses. The intent of the properties highlighted is the more westerly portion is to expand the school district's parking lot. And Liam, if you can bring up the development plan they sent in. Hold on a moment. That would be too helpful if I pre-opened it. The sort of easterly portion that is highlighted will become grass athletic fields in association with the school that's already there. And then further south, part of the property, yeah, make it full screen. Oh. Now try making it full screen. All right, do the JPEG then. Sorry, technical difficulties. All right, make that full screen for me. A portion that is not in this rezoning, but is further to the east, right at the corner of Portage and Ream, would become additional parking for the library. Very similar to the location where the library used to have additional parking. The plan, and it's very hard to see on this screen, the plan and the hope is that the expanded parking will help alleviate some of the morning school traffic by creating a longer path for them to stack cars on their property. So unfortunately, it's very hard to see on the screen, but in the plans they've submitted, there is an orange dotted line on here that shows the path of the car line coming in off Hillcrest and then wrapping down through the new expanded parking lot, and up through the old parking lot and back around one more time, and then into the existing cars. So this zoning request is to make that expansion possible. If there is no zoning change, then the school will have a much harder time expanding their parking lot to try and make more cars stack on their property. A. B, the library, where the library once could still be parking, but they want to do a land trade with the school districts for the schools to build their sports complex. Did I answer all your questions preemptively, or have I left something out, Jamie?
No, I just want to, thank you the other day when you drew my attention to the orange dotted line, because I did have a resident reach out to me in regards to this, and I know it was a concern that I had had, going back to when the school was first put in. I did go up and watch the traffic, and it does stack for quite a bit. So I just, looking at the iPad, you can almost miss it. So thank you for drawing my attention to that, and I drew the residents' attention to that as well. And I think it's also fantastic that, I mean, if you look at it, I don't know what the distance on that is, but that is a significant amount of stacking. We don't have estimate as far as cars.
I do not. I'd have to ask the school district. Sorry.
But it is a significant distance, because I know there was some concern about stacking on Hillcrest or even possibly stacking on Portage. And I think initially, actually, the one resident that I spoke to was concerned that it was going to be totally stacking on Portage and then entering that parking lot, which is on the western, the southwest corner of the school property. We know that's not the case. I mean, it is going to be in there, but it's going to come off of Hillcrest. So, but also with the amount of stacking there, I don't think that's going to be an issue. Hopefully won't be an issue. I did want to just bring up, and I know I've brought this up before, I am going to belabor the point. I just want to make sure that we are, and I know that this is a conceptual plan, so, and this is my fault because Matt was out. I didn't show this because it was a conceptual, not an actual, what was officially submitted. I think that we just need to be cognizant of the fact that there are residents who are on that street. Granted, this is the majority of that block has been a school or multiple schools for many, many, many years. But we are looking to expand it. We just want to be sure that there is no, my biggest concern is light trespass. I really would be disappointed if these people on the south side of Portage end up with, like they're looking at the Las Vegas Strip or something like that. So that would be my only concern. And I think beyond that, as long as, and I appreciate you describing the process for everybody to hear as far as how things are approved. So, I mean, I'm happy to answer questions or pass information along, but that also might be appropriate to be sent in to, another person in the city, perhaps permit department, if they have questions or concerns around it.
Yes,
That was all I.
So this is not their final development plan,
Correct.
so they did not have to submit light pole positions at this time. However, in the PDF version, not looking at it, not in this JPEG version, there are little notes that denote where they intend to put light poles, and they are on Portage facing into the school property.
Okay.
I was just going to make note of that. If you look at the other school, it's very directional. So if they're cognizant of, like, if you look on Claremont and the residents across, it's back facing this way. It's actually, if you drive by on Maple and the school doesn't have their lights on, you can drive right past and not know it's a new building. I mean, it's not very well lit on that. So
But I
hopefully
will
they
say,
follow that.
we had people that complained
Yeah.
about the directional lights back on Claremont and back on that circle. Yeah. And they had to
Really?
redo that. Yes,
I've not heard that.
a lot.
Yeah. Did they refocus on that?
Yes, and they turned them down.
Yeah,
And,
they
I
should
mean,
be
they were
able to
even
really
having,
just readjust.
they were having light from even inside the building where the stairwell was.
Yeah, initially we thought it was a shielding issue on the exterior lights, but it actually turned out to be the stairwell, and the school ended up dimming the stairwell lights of the building.
Okay.
And I think to that point is that if there is an issue that arises from this, whether it's parking lot lights or lights from the school, I would ask that the residents on Portage, if there is an issue, if one does arise, to make us aware of it and we'll work with the school and get it addressed. Yeah. And that's a perfect explanation that it was correct.
It was
It's
corrected
right, yeah.
with our help.
Any other comments, questions? I'm going to make a motion that we adopt the second reading of ordinance 12-2024.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye.
I
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on, Ben, would you please read the title of ordinance 31-2024?
An ordinance amending Chapter 339, Commercial and Heavy Vehicles, specifically Section 339.02, Use of Local Streets, Local Permit Conditions of the Codified Ordinances of the City of North Canton in order to enhance the clarity of the Commercial and Heavy Vehicle Code and to update the schedule of fees to better reflect the services provided.
And, Mr. President, we should ask the record to reflect that Member Wire can join.
David? So this is oversized loads using state routes through town. Camp, we've got it as part of the permitting process online. Get the permits that they need and move vehicles through the town. It's about $100 each. This is our third reading. Questions? See now, I'll make a motion to adopt third reading of ordinance 31.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben, would you please read the title of ordinance 32?
An ordinance amending and retitling Chapter 1501, Ohio Fire Code of the Codified Ordinances of the City of North Canton, and repealing Chapters 1503, Life Safety Code, and 1505, Bureau of Fire Prevention of the Codified Ordinances of the City of North Canton in their entirety in order to enhance the effectiveness and clarity of the city's fire code and enforcement thereof.
Then did an excellent job last week in explaining this, changing the fact that right now we have an inspection trying to cite them with a misdemeanor, and there's nobody in the building to cite, so we're moving this to be part of the enforcement code, correct?
Property code, yeah.
Property code, thank you, so that it becomes a citation, and then they correct the issue, not having to worry about. Good cleanup. Any questions? I'll make a motion to adopt the third reading of ordinance 32, 2020.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben, would you please read the title of ordinance 33-20?
An ordinance amending Chapter 135, Department of Fire and Emergency Medical Service, specifically Section 135.03, Personnel, and Chapter 155, Personnel Regulations, specifically subsection 155.04G, Part-Time Schedule of Compensation of the Codified Ordinances of the City of North Canton in order to eliminate part-time Assistant Chief position and amend the title of full-time Battalion Chief to Assistant Chief. And it does say Assistant Fire Chief, not just Assistant Chief at Gina.
Fire. So I think Ben pretty much stated it clearly in the ordinance, change that's taking place. This is the third reading. Questions? The motion to adopt the third reading of ordinance 33-20.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now to new business, Ben, would you please read the title of ordinance 36?
An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the City of North Canton to enter into an agreement with the North Canton Community Improvement Corporation for the conveyance of real property located on Wise Avenue Northwest in Jackson Township, Stark County, Ohio. Stark County parcel numbers 161-7156, 161-7968, 100-13560, 161-9794, 161-9140, 161-9141, 161-7965, 161-7964, 1600856, 1601717, 1602207, 1600450, 1601988, and 1601249 from the city to the North Canton Community Improvement Corporation and declaring the same to be an emergency.
Can you read those one? Can you read those one more time?
I was trying to tell her to make it.
Do you want to postpone this for further consideration?
Yes, so there has been a delay at the county and our annexation has not been approved yet. Along those lines, there will be new parcel numbers and we will need to amend this ordinance once that annexation is done. However, on the bright side, once it's done, there will only be 3 parcel numbers not however many I just read.
Do you have those first parcel numbers to read now?
I do not know.
No.
So yes, we are asking that you all postpone this as the county is not yet done with their process.
I'll make a motion to postpone further consideration of ordinance 36-2024 until the next regular council.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Would you please read the title of ordinance 37-2024?
Another one. A resolution submitting a request to the Stark County Auditor pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 5705.03B to certify to the City of North Canton, Stark County, Ohio, as taxing authority for the City of North Canton, the total current tax valuation of said city as a subdivision, and the dollar amount of revenue that would be generated for a replacement tax of 1 mil and an increased tax of 1 mil, totaling 2 mils, for the purpose of providing for the general construction, reconstruction, resurfacing, and repair of streets, roads, and bridges in said city for a period of 5 years, being tax years 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, and 2029, commencing in 2025, first due in calendar year 2026, and declaring the same to be an emergency.
Melissa?
Yeah, so this is the first step in moving towards replacing the 1 mil levy with the 2 mil levy. And we had a really good conversation about this at the last meeting, not the one today, but the previous date, where Rob was here and we got to ask a lot of questions. We said, if we're going to increase this, is this enough money? And Rob said, well, there's never enough money, but that this is a very good amount of money to be in line with the paving needs of the city. And he talked about the difference between the money we have now and what we can pave. What we get is not just twice as much as better than that because of economies of scale and all of that. So this is the moving forward in that process to pursue that end result. Right? Any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I mean, I think the discussion is, I'm very concerned about inflation because I've watched what inflation has done to the price of asphalt in the last 5 years, which is literally double. So I do have a concern about that, but I'm also cognizant of what the voters will approve. And I worry about this levy. I mean, I worry about the similar levies that were not passed in the last ballot issue. So I think this is the right amount, but I don't know the atmosphere. I mean, that's my big concern.
I mean, if this isn't passed, likely we're discussing assessments. If people want their roads done.
I mean,
It's unfortunate.
we're
I mean, the way that I describe it to people is, I look at the city like I look at my household. If something I have in my household, my furnace, my air conditioner breaks, you gotta find a way to pay for it. If the cost of a good that you're regularly using, groceries, well, here's been to the grocery store lately. The cost of groceries have gone up. Think of asphalt like groceries. You gotta do something or else you go hungry. You gotta figure out a way to bring in more revenue. We're stuck.
This is one piece of the pie. We're having to look at everything.
Yes.
This is one beginning of the discussion point of what we do. We have a revenue problem.
Because
But
costs have gone up.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's not just assessments. I mean, a lot of townships, they don't do it. So if you want roads like Maslin, when you go down there, when you see potholes and you go down on Walnut and Market, there are potholes. You don't do them. And if we want our roads to deteriorate like that, that's what's gonna happen.
I think a couple of years ago, I think it was Domino's Pizza, they had a national thing where they were repairing potholes, so your pizza got to you safely. Maybe we can get a Domino's in this.
Well, and I think all that conversation goes to the discussion around this to begin with, to replace the existing 1 mil levy with 2. So it would make it more possible for us to meet the paving obligation of the city. But you're right, by doing this, it is critical that it passes because our existing one mill goes away and we replace it with this. But it was what, 50, every 50 years or something? What was the numbers on the paving difference?
Oh, the current, we
In
could
the
do
current
one
rate versus-
every 53 years. Each mile gets replaced every 53
Yeah, so-
years at our current rate.
Right.
Of residential road.
But it wasn't like 16 years with the 2 mill?
Our projection is about 15 or 16
Gotcha.
with, assuming asphalt prices stay relatively stable and this mill is bad.
I mean, we had some great discussions, about this, but with Matt, I'm still worried about the asphalt going up and up,
Very likely could.
and it will, nothing ever goes down in price.
Yes, it does.
What?
It's the way, gas. A year ago, we were paying $2. Now we're paying more. Everything cycles up and down.
Well,
Salt.
gas,
Our city amenities, salt, it goes up and down all the time. That's the way.
but most things,
Gold.
milk,
Eggs.
eggs, well, eggs are going up again,
Our electric, gas.
Yeah. I agree with Matt,
I
but
think the two mill strikes a balance to a certain degree. So then, at this time, we're in a critical period for
right,
our country, let alone our community. But at least I think this gives us a benchmark that we can go forward and take care of some of our roads. And like you said, that maybe the price will come down a little bit, maybe some of the construction costs will recede a little bit for us. But I think at least the 2 mill will give us some sense of balance and will trust the voters to, support this so that we can keep our roads maintained as best as we can at this time.
But let's be positive. Let's not do a what if scenario.
yeah,
The
well,
public doesn't get it.
our roads are still better than all the other county roads. Our roads are all, knock on, they're the best in the county.
One thing I'll throw
We need to educate the voters.
One thing I'll throw out there is we're talking about being positive, and I think we can all agree that this is a critical item that gets passed. And it didn't hit me until I was just sitting here and I look back at the table and I see our wonderful chief of police back there, report. I've been told a number of times as we went through the issue 7 thing that, boy, I wish the city just told us what was going on. I wish we knew. In fact, I had one today. I wish we knew that it was this dire of a situation. We're here saying
You can't swindle, Jamie. I mean,
well, that's true. That's a valid point.
And that paper everyone gets.
That's true. Probably more than
20% if they're repository. Yeah.
valid point. I stand corrected, Mr. Mayor.
I'm with you though. Maybe we should have done a better job in trying.
Well, no, I guess I'm just scared. I'm not saying anything about that. I guess I'm looking strictly forward. I guess that is the thing that concerns me is that are people hearing this? Are people understanding it?
Right, and
That want to be engaged will become engaged and want to know what's going on.
the voters are different today than they were 20 years ago. These kids today, or the parents today of these kids, they're check writers and they don't want to get involved, but they'd rather write a check for the sports, I don't want a booster, I don't want to do this.
That is
And
not true. Let's not
Mo-
point fingers.
most people,
I think this legislation, what's important here is that we're trying to strike a balance.
right,
Trying to strike a balance between the city's needs and the citizens' ability to pay a little bit more.
right,
Let's be realistic. Most things don't go down in price. Let's say they stay there.
right.
Mr. Graham stated 2 weeks ago that he felt that this was a good balance. He has been an asset in this city. He's come up with grants, he's been finding ways to get roads paved, and he feels that this is the best place. I trust his judgment.
Yeah, so do I.
That seems like a good place to ask for a motion.
Yeah.
Yes, we're all in agreement.
I'll make a motion to adopt the first reading of 37-20.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And I have a motion and a second to suspend Council Rule 23 to allow for consideration of supplemental appropriation discussed immediately preceding committee of the whole meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben, would you please read the title of ordinance 38-20?
An ordinance authorizing the appropriation of funds of the city of North Canton to be appropriated for current expenses during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2024.
I think we listed out a long list of expenses that we're not going to spend, and then water main breaks. Just shoring up the funds. Motion to adopt?
I want to say, this is one thing. So this is the one part of the structure of doubling up on meetings I don't. Because this was in this committee, now it's right here.
Yep.
I don't like suspending the rules of something like this to bring it back onto the same type of meeting. So I'd like to, in the future, avoid that. I understand that this is a little bit more pressing than normal, but
This is appropriation funds. This is just balancing the checkbook.
I understand.
These are items that, these are just natural occurrences. You can't know when a water main break's gonna happen.
I agree with that, but that's usually brought up in the committee and then passed a week later. I mean, this is slightly different.
I feel like this is motion forward. There isn't anything that anybody would not, these are numbers, these are hard numbers.
I agree.
There isn't something that somebody out there could say, well, don't put this on hold.
On
Or
this,
don't
on this
do
particular
this.
one, I agree with you, but this is how it starts, and this is how all of that gets reduced into it. And I don't like that format. I've been saying that multiple times. In this fight, when it's numbers, when it's finance, I agree.
Yeah.
You have to move it forward.
Right.
But I don't want to see this trend continue to other things. That's what I don't. I don't think that's fair to anyone. So I'm just going on record saying.
Who said it?
Is something we give us just the next little.
Yeah.
The total cut is $1,165,000. Total add is $474,775. So the net,
Does that mean at the 585 or something?
negative $690,200.
Okay. Okay. I move to adopt the first reading of ordinance 38-2024.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
In yet another evidence that I was doing too much today, we would like to request that you adopt this under suspension of the rules, but I did forget that in the cheat sheet.
An emergency, is that what you're saying?
Under suspension of the rule,
Under suspension,
Yeah.
appropriations items are already functional emergencies by city charter.
That's nothing different.
Okay. So we waived it, the motion should be that we'll adopt, the first reading of ordinance 38-2024 under emergency.
First motion would be to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings. Second motion would be to adopt under suspension of the rules.
I'll make a motion to suspend the readings.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
We need a
Is there
second.
a second? Sorry. I was second, sorry.
Yeah.
Wait, but Stephanie can't second her own motion.
Sorry.
I made the
No.
motion. I made the motion when I read it.
He did make the motion.
Oh,
She seconded.
I thought you
All
were
in
just
favor?
asking for the motion.
You're okay.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, and I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 38-2024 under suspension.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now we'll do the second part of public speaks. Ben or Leland, if you'd like to read the preamble.
At this time, members of the public who have signed up to address City Council will be called to do so. Each speaker will be given 5 minutes. Speakers shall be called in the order they are signed up. During this section, comments shall be limited to items reasonably under the city's authority. The rules for speaking and the speaker's time will appear on the screens. After you have finished speaking, please remain at the podium to answer questions from officials at the dais. This will serve as the final warning for all speakers. Any violation of the rules will result in ejection from the premises.
Okay, so Melanie rules.
Melanie J. Roll, 308 40th Street Northwest, North Canton. At the end of a very, very long meeting, and I'm trying to make it short. This has to do with ordinance 28, 2024 and 12, 2024, which is the school property basically, which I've been talking about endlessly, I know. The fencing was before you tonight, and that was pretty straightforward as to, it can't be vinyl, 6 foot on an acre or more, which would probably be what they would choose. What is not part of that is the setbacks. I think some of you were at the planning commission last Tuesday the night, and I asked Mr. Van Gundy about setbacks for this, and he said there are no setbacks. So the school could put a fence right on the property line of the house on each side of that strip of houses. That would be on the east, which would be by the ball fields, and their house is right on the property line now. On the west is another house. These are all R50. I think the property line is very close on that west as well. So what I'm suggesting is that you folks watch, and I know there'll be this one goes back to planning. I'll try to get there and speak, but be aware that there is no setback requirement for the fence that was passed, if I have that correct.
Yes.
You heard Mr. Van Gundy say the same. That would restrict the property owner from getting to that side of their house. I don't know about fire implications or everything, but I think it should be at least talked about. The other has to do with lighting, which Jamie addressed. I think it's always wise to get things talked about before they're installed, because it's easier to do it in that phase than after the installation. Currently, the school is brightly lit at night. Similar to, I think, what happened at the intermediate school, where there aren't many houses right there, but it is bright, like a half a block away. And Stephanie is correct that there were residents in that circle that talked about it, and the school and the city worked to remedy the situation. But where the lights are placed, if there's going to be along the ball fields, which I'm not sure, would be a concern. And I would just ask that you be involved in how this unfolds. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Okay, so you said the east and west of the homes that I think I see. If you're around, can I pull it up on my?
Sure, it's the Humbert House, which
Okay.
is the one that's closest. And for some reason, their house is right on the property line.
Yeah, that's what I'm noticing as well. Okay. Yeah.
That's interesting. With the Fieldcrest property, remember that was a big sticking point. And I think she had 10 and 20 foot setbacks.
Wow.
Still wasn't happy. So I'm wondering what, a reasonable setback would be. And so are you looking to have that in legislation prior?
Pardon me?
Are you looking to have that put in the legislation?
I have no say on that.
I know. Would you like?
I found it strange. I think I asked Mr. Van Gundy twice during that meeting. He's sure there's no setbacks? And I thought I heard him, and Mr. Young can verify or not, that there are no setbacks in fencing in MSC.
There are typically no setbacks for fencing in any district, because say you're going to fence in your whole backyard. If we had a setback, you'd theoretically sacrifice, 2, 5, 3 feet of your yard to your neighbor if we had a setback. And then if you and your neighbor both had fences and there was 3 foot setbacks on each side, you'd have a 6 foot strip in the middle.
Somebody would have to mow.
Yeah.
The difference is that this is, well, it's not P&I anymore, it's Main Street. So I would think that they would have to adhere to a little different regulations than a residential property. I don't know.
Is the house in question, is it, I mean, I guess, you know, if it's already built, it's already built.
Oh my gosh,
But,
it's
I
like
mean, is- I
1880
mean, I
or
think
something.
What, houses are required to have, what, a 5-foot setback?
I mean, those houses are century homes. There were no setbacks.
I mean, the house.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's
I don't think there's a foot between their structure.
No, it looks like it.
I mean, if that's, yeah, is that,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
there's nothing. I mean,
Melanie, have they said anything to you? Do they?
They
even
were
realize?
here, they're shy, they don't want to speak.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Melanie.
Uh-huh.
Then after we're done with this, with that item, does it go back to planning commission again then?
Not automatically. You would have to choose to send it back to planning. But we do have the public hearing now we have to wait till that hearing.
Okay.
And the neighbors will all be mailed in accordance with.
Okay. Hopefully they,
Yeah.
even though they're shy.
Oh,
maybe,
no, there would be
maybe
no,
old Melanie
oh,
will-
I'm sorry. There will be no mailing because it's a
No,
text
it's not
amendment.
zoning.
It's not a map amendment. My bad.
Thank you. Okay, so. Is that John?
Ken?
Yeah, sorry.
I'll be quick too. I know you guys want to get out of here.
Yes, no.
Hi, Kenneth McCallis, 339 Portage Street. I agree with most of what Lynn said. The only other thing I'd add to it is a concern about potentially the style of fence that's going in, to make sure that you guys have decent control over what type of fence is being put up, especially like around the properties, you know, rather, I know it says no vinyl, you know, but there's still potential for them to place fences. And even downtown, we don't necessarily want to put certain style fences, it'll look wrong. And basically like, make downtown look sort of compartmentalized and sloppy if you choose the wrong type of fences. So if there's some way for the planning and zoning commission to sort of have a little more control over what types of fences are still open but divided. So that and lighting, I know you guys said work with the other schools, so hopefully you can continue to work with that for the areas around our houses. And if I can make one comment about the dispatch center. I know it's after the fact, but just nothing controversial. Just to make the comment that it is much easier to tear down and destroy than it is to build. So I would encourage that you go slowly with that. Because once you tear it down, it will become 10 times harder to put it back in place if you want to. It's a general rule of thumb, it's much easier to tear down and destroy than it is to build something back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions?
No, we're good.
You're good. Okay, so, moving on. Again, let's go to the department report. Let's start with the mayor.
Well, thank you very much, President Correa. Appreciate everybody's patience tonight. We want to talk and discuss and things like that. And I'd like to start off with just a couple comments that, I think we all understood today or this evening from the people who spoke about dispatching services. Again, they're asking us for careful consideration, planning, and thorough evaluation I believe that's not the path that we're taking here for council and administration. A comment was made by one of our sergeants about spreadsheets don't illustrate everything, but without a graph or some type of illustration to help show patterns or to illustrate a fact, I think it's very useful. It's in our police department reports, and it's also in our fire department reports. We use graphs and illustrations to show things of importance, okay? And I thought that was a good correlation, that they use it there and we are using it here, also in our reports. And we'll take a moment here to comment on the Perry Township detective, to single out Mr. Benjamin Young, that he's never had his life put on the line, I think was an uncalled for criticism. This gentleman over here, this employee of ours, was charged by this committee, or this council, to research options for dispatching services and providing a deeper look for all of us. And I think that's what he has been trying to do, to cover as many bases as he could, facts and figures. So again, I think that comment by the detective was an uncalled for criticism against Mr. Young. I'd like to get into some city business, if you don't mind. Okay. For the record, for those that are still tuning in, again, if you haven't seen Charter Communications, which is Spectrum, their soliciting permits from April the 8th to the 18th. We also have a soliciting permit issue for masking property masters in accordance with our ordinances. They're going door to door through April 26th. So if your constituents get a call, or you get a call from them, it's a window washing service, from what I could research, just in case you get a call from any of your constituents. I checked with Rob again about the road closures for Portage and Charlotte roundabout work. If he can get it done by the 15th and the weather holds out, great, but we're shooting for hopefully by Memorial Day to have that roundabout completed, landscaped, and so just want to let you know, although the cold weather or the wet weather didn't help us. This is a week early, but just so you all know, Monday, April the 22nd, we're going to start doing our flushing of the hydrants in each of the quadrants, and you all have gotten information on that, I hope. But that was released today by the Water Distribution Department, that the flushing of the hydrants will begin between 11 and 5 a.m. or 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. and on a certain schedule for each one of the quadrants. Also on the 20th, we've been able to partner with the North Canton Library for many years on Earth Day. And for those of you that participate on that Earth Day Recycle Fair, that's going to be 11 to 2 on this Saturday, April the 20th. And there might be some charges for fluorescent bulbs and things like that. So if you're going to return some of those things, you might have a couple bucks in your pocket. But of course, Goodwill will be taking clothes, and our e-cycle people will be in place to handle electronics. I know Liam is working hard on the North Canton city water customers, and you might give us an update on that, on the self-reporting, and that's due by May 1st. And we're asking all our residents to fulfill that all public and private owned water distribution service line be checked. The other questions I had lately were on yard waste recycling. It's seasonal, and I did reach out to Plain Township, Lake Township, and Nimishillen Township yard waste facilities if they would accept anybody from North Canton, and they said no. It's only they're only taking residents of those locations of the township. Basically, they're all $25 renewals. You get a card key, pass key, and there you go in.
I'll remember that.
Okay, there you go. Now, I did check with Kimball, our city vendor, our city trash and yard waste curbside. Again, I talked with our sales manager, and he reiterated again in our contract, their branches shall be cut to the length not greater than 36 inches and tied in bundles weighing less than 50 pounds. So, and that could be put out at curbside, all right? Yeah, I guess if there's anything bigger, then you have to call them on the 1-800 service. Just so you know, If anybody's really looking about recycling, all you have to do is go to their website and it'll show you all the things that they'll recycle for us, okay? So there's paper, newspaper, cardboard, metal, aluminum cans, glass bottles, plastic bottles, and jugs and things like that. And last but not least, as I drive the cities, and maybe you all do in your wards, breaking and blowing leaves or grass clippings into the street is prohibited in North Canton, as it is in the majority of municipalities. And we still have people who will just leave their clippings in the curbside, and first and foremost, that debris just clogs is a major problem for our sewer system, and obviously they collect at the grates and things like that. I don't have a plan in place, but if I was a homeowner and I had a grate in front of my house that was plugged up, I would just take a rake and clean that out myself. Really not worry about it. Not making a big program or anything like that, but you're taking pride in your neighborhood and around your house. Again, it creates a real big problem for us. So North Canton still has a prohibition against raking or blowing leaves or grass clippings into the street. And I'm just requesting all of our citizens to comply with that and just be respectful of our sewer system and safety for everybody else on the road. And with that, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was long lead, so I don't want to go too long, but I want to say that, it's undeniable to consider, and there's numerous factors, and we're giving you everything. And I would just say that this, I know is a decision. So just really look at everything, careful review, not just really one, we can get fixated on maybe one specific part, but kind of look at everything in totality and make a decision. I mean, we trust you, you're the elected officials of this community, and it's a tough job. You're the ones that have to, guide us on managing the city budget and navigating us through difficult times. And these are difficult times, without a doubt. Appropriations that Gina spoke of had lots of them. We saw them. We're at a situation right now where it's what's, say this often, what do we need, what do we want, a lot of wants, what we need, and that's where it gets tough. And it's saying what it was, the needs of everything. So, I know that it's a decision you won't take lightly, and ultimately that you all look back because you're not just elected officials, you're members of the community. It affects you, it affects all of us. And so we trust that you will look at all the information given, and it's not just numbers, it's people. Your families, people, it's services, it's this community, it's what they expect, what we give, it's what we're able to do. Along the lines of that, we talked about sale of properties. That's something we're doing, but we're also looking at the properties that we still hold. And we had a meeting with developers this week, and we're continuing to meet with others. So we're still talking to people, a lot of meetings that we had with the changing of situation and administration. We've met with a lot of community groups. They've been coming in. People want to meet with us and want to know, are we still a strong team? What's going on? And we're reassuring them. You've probably heard the different little things out there, the community functions, the parades, the fireworks. Everybody's asking questions, and we're working to still deliver that. Still be the North Canton we are, the community we love. So we had an opportunity last Thursday. Ben, the mayor, and I were asked by the Chamber of Commerce to come and talk about economic development in the city. It was nice. It was over at the Howland Bird in the basement, and there was some food, and it was a 4 members only event. And about 40 people there, and just kind of round table, casual, set up their stools, and they asked their questions and answered them, showed them some visuals, and I think it went really well. So that's what we're all working on, and we've come together as a real team, administration team, finance team, and the other part of that team. Thank you.
Thank you. Finance.
I will only say one thing. Less than 2 hours. But Jim's gonna walk us through the next or the 4 days.
And on that note, we'll start with income.
We're gonna do a little quarterly analytics comparing to last year at this time, the first quarter. So, start with income tax. So currently we're up $72,000 with holdings and net profit being up 290,000. Gina and I did red flag the individual portion of our income tax. That's down currently at by 217,000 compared to last year at this time. So we are.
You haven't filed 2 hours.
Well, from this time last year, it's compared. So that's something we're red flagging, and so we sent an email out to either this afternoon to see. Like that's their biggest worry. But right now, with everything going on for them, but we want to see what that's about. So, we red flag that. License fees and permits, we're up $45,000. We're contributing that to the rental registration, so that's doing well for us. Rentals, so that's the dog shelter, price per shelters. We're currently down $3,600, and that's due to it's exciting one. Interest, so we are up currently from last year at this time by approximately $62,000, which is 48% increase. We're finishing up with the change to meter investments currently, so that's something we should have by the end of this month of the meter investments monthly reports and that listed. So that's exciting for us. Producing water utility, currently have 9,249 water customers. We are up $144,000 in terms of water revenue, but we contribute $102,000 that to a grant, or at least make a widening, which is 2015. So yeah, so that was the big portion in that way, but that's 9% for compared to last year. We also, which we think is exciting, from this point last year, we had over 2,300 utility customers, and we have currently our auto pay utility customers, and we currently have 3,267. That's a net gain of 954 auto pay utility customers, so that's pretty exciting. Do a little bit of payroll here. So last year at this time we had approximately, now this fluctuates based off the year, people hire, so we had approximately 108 full-time last year. And then currently at the first quarter here, we had 112 people, so that's an increase of 4. And I contribute that one person fire EMS increase, one person increase the police, one sewer and water, one water treatment. Like I said, that fluctuates with. And then accounts payable. So we'll talk about total vouchers and checks written. We issued 50 more checks than we had last year at this point. But we're down by approximately $465,000 not paid. But yeah, other than that, if you would like this report I kind of put together, I can send it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to present it. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Right.
Some good, who knows?
We're gonna find out.
We're gonna find out.
Clerks.
I think I have more than used my time this evening.
Here, here.
All I'll say is have everybody keep up with the water service lines. There's still a couple names sitting up here today, so I haven't seen. So I'd like to urge everybody to continue doing the service lines as we approach our deadline before we have to try to adopt new, potentially more aggressive strategies that we haven't devised yet.
Thank you. Let's go on to council reports. So, Jay.
All right, I got a couple items I wanted to bring up. I think Catherine touched on it as far as fireworks and trying to have those fun, exciting things in our community. And I want to give a big shout out to North Canton Area Chamber of Commerce. They have taken on the July 4th fireworks. And so, yeah, I think we all got emails today. And so, I mean, this is not an official request, but I'm just going to throw out there that they're asking for business owners who might be interested in sponsoring to reach out. And, I'd love it if we as a community could show them that this is something we want to continue to have. So please do support the North Canton Area Chamber of Commerce in this endeavor to keep this great July 4th tradition. I want to thank Chief Kemp for allowing me to come in and dispatch. Want to also thank all those who spoke earlier, and frankly, more importantly, at 10:10 in the evening, I want to thank everybody who is still here. I'm going to throw out maybe ending on a slightly less than positive note. I think that this is a 3-hour-long meeting. Holy cow, my ADD's kicking in, and my watch literally told me that it was my bedtime. I actually showed Melissa.
Mine turned off.
I think this is a perfect example of why doubling up meetings are nowhere near ideal, and I hope we keep it as the exception and not the rule. So that's it.
It was the eclipse last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
David. I'll be brief. As chairperson of personnel and safety, as stated, the weight of this decision immense. Ben, thank you for the work that you've done. We need to have take this decision lightly. Everyone sitting here doing their due diligence. Melissa.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna save some of mine for rollover minutes later. But I will say I'm glad, Catherine, that you mentioned, and Jamie, that you mentioned fireworks. And I think it's important for people to know that that was a really good moment of collaboration between the chamber and the city and the JCs. They all got together and said, hey, how can we work together to make sure that these events happen and work together in the right spirit? And so we are thankful to the chamber for taking it on, but it is in cooperation with the city. I think that's important to mention.
John?
No report.
What?
No report.
Stephanie?
I'll just ditto what everybody said, but Ben, truly, thank you for all that information. We've never gotten this far, and we have thought of it numerous times and just kind of stopped. And so to carry it this far with actual number and data, and in a time where the digital age is transformative, and we need to remember that. So I appreciate what Mr. Fogel said, but at that time also, we didn't have Waze, we didn't have technology that let us know where people are. I'm not going into a gas station anymore asking directions. I'm looking at my phone, and that there's just so much out there that really brings us into this new age that allows us to be more efficient, more compliant, and really serve all of those differently. And then sometimes, better. So just thank you for getting us to this point, and we will keep evaluating.
Christina?
I would just say, no one wants to see cuts. I mean, we just cut a lot of parks, things that were planned. I don't want to cut dispatch. We'll see. I'm going to study and see what I can learn. But I feel like this community soundly defeated a tax income increase that we asked for, and there are consequences to that. I don't know. I feel like we're in a tough place, and that's all.
Library has their on Saturday, is that?
Shredding the Goodwill.
Yeah. It just goes about. Yeah, and it always rains for some reason.
Yeah. Always rain.
I haven't made up my mind, despite which one speaker has some sort of obsession of accusing me of everything I want. I haven't made up my mind on this. It's silly to suggest that I have. I'm going to weigh all the options. I'm going to sit in dispatch. I'm going to go to all these other places. I'm going to, weigh the potential increase of adding people into it. I'm going to look at all angles. This is not an easy decision. It's certainly not. So I do get sensitive when people blindly criticize people. It's a little ridiculous. I encourage all of us to look at it with an open mind. I mean, it's something others are doing, and to the speaker's credit, we need to talk to the people that are in their shoes as well. So I think that's it. I think we've had a long enough meeting tonight. So our final call for new business.
Yes, I've got 3 things I'd like to.
Mayor?
The upcoming meetings calendar, April 22nd is the regular city council meeting. And April 29th, there is no meeting to the 5th Monday. Potentially we could add something if I will make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?